dead bugs.
They could force us resolve more issues protest any other fact.
Don't be afraid. Can't do human. Yet.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits. Don't do your job, I'll shoot you.
It's a prey!
Welcome to the Fluff and Hammer. Welcome to whatever it is that we're calling this show this week. It will change in a week, I assure you. My name is Adam, and with me is Big D. How are you, sir?
I'm very good.
I'm not bad. We are here today to do another of our little sort of film waffle things. Now, by the way, we've started running the film. Sorry, for those listening, we've started running the film. Do you want to pause it actually, because then we can let the folks know when we start, and then if you're following on at home, we can do that. I've realised as well we probably need to do that going forward.
Probably. What a place to pause it though.
I know. So here's the deal, folks. Like Big D and I were talking this is a while ago. We've done a couple of these now. But we've seen in terms of people talking about films, there are a couple of different formats on YouTube and on Discord. One of them is the reaction video, which you see all the time now. You know, the 40-year-old who has every nerdy thing under the sun, but somehow has never seen Star Wars. And they give you their highlights with the extras on a Patreon, which is all lovely. We don't want to do that because we've seen these films. We've also chosen to talk about certain films because they are films linked to the 40k universe, either in tone or subject matter, or they have the feel, or there is an influence there, or something like that. And we might even then move into Sigma-related films later on. But the other thing as well is that this isn't a commentary. This isn't a straightforward. We're not going to constantly reference the screen and go, look at this. And that's partially because if you're listening to this on Discord, you will be seeing the film. But if you're listening to this on YouTube, you probably won't be seeing it. What we'll do, though, is we'll tell you when we reset and restart the film. And therefore, if you do have a copy of the film, you can watch it along with us. And if you don't have a copy of the film, well, it's a little film discussion.
Yeah.
In fact, we don't even need to do that. We could just say we're starting on the federal network insignia. So all you have to do is you can start running the film at home now. We're going to keep this paused until you hit the federal network, the big gold, slightly suspicious looking logo. Then pause it. And then we're going to run through some spiel first. Then we'll tell you when we start running again, and then we'll start chatting. This makes for a more convoluted plot than this film has. But there we go. So anyway, listen, I want to start this off by telling you something that happened to me today. As we're recording, this is the 10th of August. As you may or may not be aware, there's some tense stuff going on in the UK at the moment. And I decided to go out to a car boot sale. And that's in a place called Uxbridge near London. Sort of right on the end of the underground map. And I got out at Uxbridge this morning, and as I was walking through the town, some guy started hurling abuse. And I wasn't aware of what it was. And as I sort of walked away, I suddenly heard some very nasty words, and they were slurs against people. And so I then turned around and realized the person was shouting at me.
Oh.
And I walked forward because I could see that there were families nearby and there were people nearby, and everybody was looking at him, and a few of them were looking at me. And I could see that some people were laughing as well, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And so I walked up and I actually said, "Hey friend, are you okay?" I was in full "I'm going to be nice" mode.
Yeah.
Turns out he was by the way, this is 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's got a bottle of beer in his hand. Now I'm not judging, but 9 a.m. bottle of beer. Yeah, Uxbridge, probably
Classy.
not a good look. Yeah, classy. But he assumed that because I had a shaved head, I was one of those people. He was yelling at me,
Huh.
and the slurs that he was yelling at me were included in the phrases, "You're not allowed to call people blah, blah, blah. You're not allowed to do this." And I looked, and firstly, I looked to, can I say this? An old person of color who was walking by
Hmm.
me,
Yeah.
who looked at me, smiled, went, "Don't worry, dear. He's clearly drunk." Then I looked across and saw an elderly white man who was just laughing at this guy. And I realized that he was just so drunk and deluded. But
Hmm.
it did, unfortunately, because of the way I look, especially with the shaved head,
Hmm.
this is something that's happened before. And we think of the nasty people, the thugs, especially in the UK at the moment. We
Hmm.
think of people like that as being your typical skinheads, as being what you would consider a prejudiced person to look like.
Yeah.
But also this week, we've had problems in central London with commuters getting in other commuters' faces and revealing themselves to be prejudiced. And they don't have shaved heads. They have lovely coiffured hair. And they
Hmm.
don't have t-shirts bearing insulting text on them. They have suits. They look smart. They look respectable. And the people they're going after are respectable office workers who just
Hmm.
happen to be obviously of a different ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I know this all seems extremely heavy for the start of a show like this, but nothing. It's weird, but nothing has brought home more this week than the fact that you really can't tell by appearance now who might be one of those negative people and who is a positive person. The only good thing is that in every case where I've seen something negative happen, the positive minded people have stepped up and taken care of. And it's been
Absolutely.
lovely. But coming into this film, it made me think more than ever the fact that so much of the message was missed here
Hmm.
makes it a bit of a tragedy. There are reasons for that. We'll talk about them during the film. The other thing is the bingo list of things that I wanted to get off. Because my goodness, if you go online on YouTube and you see here's the story behind Starship Troopers, they're reading the Wikipedia, okay?
Yeah.
The Wikipedia is huge. I might even record it for Gruffy because it would take 2 hours just to read the document. And
Yeah.
then he could advertise it as the ultimate guide. So here's the thing that I think everyone knows. So for a start, it wasn't based on the Starship Troopers book, but it became based on it because they realized it was an easier sell. The
Hmm.
book had the same problems as the film in that it portrayed a very fascistic society, but it was too complimentary. It didn't make them out to
Hmm.
be evil bad guys. It was a bit too subtle. People have argued about the merits of it ever since. Um, the director had direct experience. He grew up he was in the Second World War in
Yeah.
terms of he was a kid at that time. So he knows what it's like to be invaded and occupied. There's no subtlety from him in terms of his feelings on this film. And of course the cast were a type of cast was cast for a reason. They're
Hmm.
meant to be Beverly Hills 90210 actors. Ironically, they've all been a little bit whitewashed because of where they're meant to come
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
which I don't think many people bring up. And also as well, there's one little piece of insight that I'll mention towards the end, which I believe nobody has ever brought up before in regards to this film. And it is the same thing that actually happens in RoboCop that nobody else has ever brought up there either. So yeah, that's it. Have you got anything? Sorry, Big D. I've really rabbited. My goodness,
No,
there needs
that's
to be a warning about this. But is there anything you want to add before we start playing? And again, I remind you, I think. By the way, if you if you're on Starship Troopers, we're at the 34-second mark,
yeah.
so that's good. Is there anything that you want to add before we start playing this film?
Honestly, Gruff should be adding a warning to just on the homepage of the website and in front of all Fluff and Hammer
Too
productions.
much waffle. Adam White
Caution.
waffle.
Caution. Waffle inbound.
Yeah, white waffle. That'll be it. It'll be a white waffle symbol. It'll be 2
Mm,
stylized W's. I will get that done.
yeah.
And in fact, I have to get it done now because he's gonna hear this on the edit, and he will.
Yes, he
If I
will.
don't do it, he will get it done. So
But no, you've hit it right on the head there. So much of, I mean, I remember when this came out, this film, because it was one of the first films of its rating I actually went to see at the cinema when I probably shouldn't have, or shouldn't have been able to, because I've always been able to pass for older than I am,
yeah,
and now I can pass for much older than I am.
yes, I can pass for my own grandfather. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but it's one of the things. Almost every review I read at the time, because I was reading things like Total Film,
Yeah,
Empire, SFX, Starburst, that sort of thing. They all zoned right in on the fact that this film is taking the piss.
yeah.
It's mocking. There is nothing about the Federation in this film that is to be admired. The
If that's the
whole,
case, I'll tell you what. Let's run it now because we
yeah.
can
Let's
crack on with
let's
this as
let's
it
let's
starts.
let's start it.
Okay,
But
we're
m-
running. Right.
yeah. So Starship Troopers, directed by Paul Verhoeven, who is one of the most fascinating directors to have worked in the industry.
Yeah,
Like you say, he grew up under Nazi occupation in, was it Holland?
I, bel I believe so. We're failing
Yeah,
already, by the way, but it's
yeah.
good.
That's on me. Poor research. But he had made, before he came to the States, he
Yeah,
had
he made
made he had
interesting
a
films.
he did, and a lot of them were critical of Nazism and fascism in general,
Is
massively
it
so.
Soldier Orange?
Soldier of Orange.
Yeah, and it tackles it looks at people as well who collaborated
Yeah.
and people who fought, and has a very, I think, delicate way of viewing both.
Mm. Famously, though, the film that, by all accounts, cost him the directing gig on Return of the Jedi.
Wow.
Because he was one of the, I think it came down to him, David Lynch, and in the end David Marquand was for, Lynch wasn't available. Verhoeven, there was issues because I think it was Soldier Orange. I can't swear to it. So there was a fairly explicit gay relationship in the film,
Okay.
and that turned out that made, I don't want to say it made Lucas wary, but it made the production team a bit cautious to let him loose on Star Wars. But just imagine a Paul Verhoeven directed Return of the Jedi,
Oh,
listeners. Just imagine that, a film where he gets to let rip against the ultimate fascist stand-in.
he would have done really well, I think.
I know, right? That could have been. I mean, he would have been all into having not Ewoks. He'd have said, "No, I want Wookiee suits. I can make
Ah.
this work. Gimme." But no, this is such a fascinating film though, because he came to this after he'd had RoboCop, Total Recall. I think he did this before Showgirls.
Mm,
So you think about RoboCop, Total Recall, then this. Three films that are arguably modern science fiction classics.
yeah.
Also, all readily identifiable as Paul Verhoeven movies because they are violent as all get out. But that was just his style. He did things over the top, and it worked massively well. The the problem is that a lot of audiences, especially, I hate to say it, American audiences, struggle quite a lot to get the satire.
Well, remember as well, they like he said as well that this was never advertised as a satire in America.
Yeah, yeah,
And in fact, it's the classic story as well at the time of even though he'd done this is what I don't get. He'd done RoboCop. Now,
mm,
admittedly, he'd then gone on to do the double whammy of Basic Instinct,
yep, yep,
and he was like at the time of making this, he was finishing off Showgirls, which blows my mind as well.
yeah.
But but nobody thought that him doing a film like this with the adverts as well, and they just didn't tie it to what he'd done on RoboCop, which
Yeah,
is weird because it's like it's pretty much the same style of advert.
absolutely.
By the
And
way,
like,
can I just say by the way, talk about foreshadowing, early
mm,
iPads.
yeah, yeah.
Which is something I've taken from Red Letter Media, by the way. That's I know I'm gonna be so careful about what I talk about in terms of extras on this. I want as much as possible to be original content
Mm,
because it's just the wiki thing has plagued.
yeah. Can I also just
But
say the
yeah,
casting of Michael Ironside here? So Ironside at this point was coming off of a string of playing some very iconic villains.
yeah,
That was kind of what he's a tremendous character actor in general, but he was most known for playing bad guys and very
mm,
good bad guys at that.
yeah,
And in this film, they have Verhoeven has him play this much more. I don't want to say avuncular, but John Rasic is a much more interesting character because yes, because you get the sense that he does actually care for his students and later his troops. He's actually committed. He's a believer, but he also wants everyone to understand what that means.
yeah. It's weird. His whole arc is based on. I'm like even his sort of ending is
Mm,
asking for compassion. Though it's
yeah.
weird because somebody did come up with a theory that he gets like one of his the soldiers under his charge like killed because he doesn't like him. And it's like a evil Jar Jar moment. It's like it kind
Yeah,
of makes sense when you put it all together. Um,
yeah.
can we also talk about as well about like Doogie Howser?
I know this was a brilliant bit of casting because I mean people probably forget, but at this point, oh, and I've forgotten his name. Christ,
Oh, well,
the act.
the actor.
Yeah, his name's just escaped me. I feel so
Oh,
bad.
oh no, don't worry. I would you believe would you believe I bloody forgot myself? That's nuts. Um, oh, that would be Patrick Harris.
Yes, Neil Patrick Harris.
Which, by the way, people are now going, how could you not know who Neil Patrick Harris is? Because the legacy of Doogie Howser was such a big thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, folks forget now because he's reinvented his whole legacy through playing Barney
Mm.
and a slew of other characters, starting here really
This
as
was his
Carl.
first, yeah.
Because before this, he was known as the genius Doogie Howser MD, this kid who graduated med school before he enters his 20s, and was kind of like just incredibly wholesome. And here he just plays to see his character of Carl go from being this slightly creepy telepath
Yep.
to go full on. I mean, they make no bones about it with what he's wearing later on. He
Oh
goes
no.
full SS. It's
Well,
I mean,
it's he has a. It's almost like I wish I'd seen his story.
mm,
Like
yeah,
there's clearly something. I mean, like you see him. There's this little moment where you see him sort of doing his training, but
yeah,
it's almost like by the time you see him again, it's not just the uniform. He has that real sort of haunted look to his eyes.
yeah,
You know he's seen some stuff.
mm,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I actually think he might it's almost a tragedy because he didn't have anyone around him to protect him. And by the
Mm,
time he sees people again, he's using them. And it's
yeah,
not like he does genuinely, I think, care, but
yeah. He joins up to be with his friends, and because I mean, that's the key thing here as well. None of these kids join up unwillingly. They go into it knowing what's expected because they believe in what they're doing,
yeah.
because of how they've been trained by the system.
Mm,
And it's a system that is kind of interesting for how the idea that democracy failed, so there was basically a military coup. the veterans decided you could only be a citizen if you served in the military
Yep.
first. But people still have lives without doing that. It's just that's the only way to take part in the legislature, and you're kind
Y-
of at
You can
the
get
mercy
away
of it.
with it if you're rich, which is where
Yes.
Rico's parents come in. By the way,
Yeah.
we should say at this point as well, this is Buenos Aires, the
Mm.
capital of Argentina.
Mm.
And you can tell because everybody looks Argentinian.
I mean, I remember reading one review of it, or one person's commentary on it, where they made the gag about how, yeah, it's South America and they're all white because that's where all the Nazis went.
Yes.
Which is, it was taking the piss, but equally, it's one of those things you just think, would Verhoeven have been thinking of that when they were doing the casting? Because that's kind of funny if they did, and it would pan out. Because I mean, it's actually a fairly multicultural cast overall when you once you get into boot camp and stuff.
It's not
But
bad.
but but not here. It, it's the main cast is, well, there's a melanin deficiency, shall we say?
Yes. By the way, as well, people listening as well, you probably at this point, if you've not seen Starship Troopers, you're probably going, my goodness, this is tackling like a lot of heavy subjects, and you've mentioned the other N word here,
Mm,
and we're talking about race, and we're talking about stuff like this, and unfortunately, the reason why this film has become what it is because it's meant to portray a negative society, a
mm,
driven fascistic society, but it does it in a way that's almost almost glamorizes elements of it. I'm like, you don't
yeah,
ever believe that it's I don't know, you don't ever believe it's completely evil for a large chunk of it.
yeah. I
And
mean, I mean,
yeah,
the information's all there.
yeah.
If you
If you
everything that
look
tells
for it,
you that this war is humanity's fault, that these these aren't the defenders, these are the aggressors in this war, and they're getting their asses spanked accordingly. And it's just really interesting that because Verhoeven's, well, because the approach here was that they did kind of present it straight,
yeah,
almost as an over the top celebration in a lot of ways. People missed that it was so over the top. That was the whole point.
yeah,
And I mean, it's a marvelous production, to be fair,
yeah.
because it's it's become a staple. It's just
Well,
so funny that folks
it,
miss the point.
it's weird because you've had this whole like you had what's the game that you guys are playing at the moment or were playing that was
Uh,
about Starship Troopers so you can get Helldivers.
oh yeah, Helldivers, yeah.
Yeah. So Helldivers is basically I mean, it's a Verhoeven movie
Oh
in
yeah,
an action game, and it's there's just so much like tied into that. In fact, it's timing because I think it was only about 6 months before they did a Starship Troopers game. It
yeah.
kind of stole all the wind out of the Starship
I
Troopers
know
game.
that it was kind of funny, and the best was that Casper Van Dien, who plays Johnny,
Yeah.
he he gets tagged quite a lot in Twitter posts about Helldivers, and he's, to be fair to him, he's quite game. 'Cause he, 'cause he's like, yeah, I'd do a voice for this. Oh yeah, this is clearly Starship Troopers. No kidding.
He's cool with it though. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
again, they also said as well that they play 40K all the time. So, that's
yeah.
by the way, we should probably say as well, because we've not spelt it out. My goodness, this is the I'd actually tried to organize this recording and I had a script which I'm not using at all, as you can tell. But this will be the worst organized of all these that we've ever done because I've not even said why we've chosen this.
Oh
So
yeah, good
going,
point.
yeah. So go, talking. So yeah, this covers though a little bit of what we've been going on about since we started, which is my experience with being uh, recognized as being something that I'm not because of the way I look,
Mm,
going through the way the casting, going through the film, going through the film director, but also as well talking about this idea that this is meant to be an evil society, and these are meant to technically be the bad guys. But we need someone to root for. We need a protagonist. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to make your protagonist evil, but you still want to be able to cheer for them. And
Mm.
I'm getting completely distracted by Dinah's dress there because she looks stunning. And
Fair.
this is the problem. This is the problem that Amazon will have when they go to do a 40K movie.
Mm.
Because if you want to cover the Imperium of Man, how do you do it? How
Well,
do you make them the bad guys and don't do what they did in this film? And sort of, you know what I mean? Where do you draw the
yeah.
line in the sand?
Well, it's funny you say that because one of the Fluff and Hammer's members, Swanee,
Mm,
she posts a lot about because she's in love with the writing on Dark Tide,
yes,
which is perfectly fair because if you dig deep, the actual writing,
is really good.
yeah, and the voice acting is superb.
Yep.
But she also she's been reading a lot of the fiction, and this for me it's been fascinating because she's come to it much later. I mean, I've been in deep in the fiction since Black Library launched,
Yep.
and she's reading a lot of, especially the more recent books like Death World, Ashes of Cadia, The Fall of Cadia, and she made a really good post a couple of days ago that stuck to me, where she was saying part of what she enjoys is that the best 40k fiction doesn't shy away from the fact that the Imperium is an absolute hellscape. But there's two
Yeah.
things that the best fiction gets across. One, it's what has it's the only well, it's what's managed to survive in
Yep.
this dark hellscape. Because that's the whole point, that this is the level of it's so violent and dark out there that
Yep.
humanity's had to become this just to endure. Because there's no innovation, it's purely survival.
Yep.
And that in amongst that, you still have genuine heroes, people
Yeah,
who
this is
can
true.
still
Yeah.
be heroic.
Yeah.
And it is a very hard line to tread. And it's one that Amazon are going to have to be really careful to do. I mean, we've talked before about how do they introduce things. You can't go straight to Space Marines because, frankly, that's just gonna undercut things from the off because they're so hard to do anyway. Do you do like an Eisenhorn style investigation? Do you maybe pitch it like for Warhammer Crime Stuff, where you set it in a single city of one in down as like investigator,
Mm.
in almost like a Necromunda setting, showing the absolute worst that humanity can get to, and the excesses as you go up the levels? Do you go my preferred route, which would be Gaunt's Ghosts ideal, where you focus in on the Imperial Guard, on the
Yeah.
on the Lasman, the poor grunts who are literally considered a disposable asset because the Imperium thinks nothing of throwing a billion men at a problem. They are the hammer. But yeah, it is a difficult line, and this film treads that line as well because, like you say, for the way things are made, you need to have a hero.
You do, and it reminds me as well of something I saw. I think it's a Luton video once where he talks about Hive City,
Mm.
and he talks about what's their main resource. Their main resource they export is people, and
No,
so
yeah.
people are having relationships even in these dark and impressive environments. And in fact, if you're looking at the city as a whole, it's awful.
Mm.
It's when you look at individual characters, there might be, well, there will be the good souls. It's just overall, the people in charge just have this oppressive, you know, not like it's let's face it, it's like politics.
Yeah.
We
Well,
tend to
here's
view our politicians as pretty negative at the best of
mm.
time. But eventually, sometimes through charitable means or by individuals' good graces, we have good people that do good things.
Mm.
So yeah,
But it's not even evil with intent.
yeah,
It's evil purely by carelessness, bureaucracy, lack of imagination. It's all those things which aren't they aren't the easiest to really get across so that people get it, if that makes sense.
yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing: Starship Troopers has had a succession of sequels over the years.
Oh
Most
my
of them,
goodness.
let's be
Yes.
honest, are not great. Starship
Not
Troopers
great.
2 is terrible. Starship Troopers 3 is probably as close to being as good as this as they've gotten.
Yeah. And
It's
they are
still,
trying to do another. They are trying to do like a reboot, which makes
mm,
sense for them. But
yeah,
I don't know if they'd ever. The thing is, as well, with politics being the way it is,
yeah,
how do they do this without? I mean, they would have to ramp it up. It would have to be like boys level,
yeah.
and
I mean,
really like spell out because you couldn't go political if you see what I
mm,
mean.
yeah. I mean, could you imagine trying to release this film today?
No, you could do it, but you would just have to make it a lot more obvious. And I think
Oh
that was
yeah,
the challenge they had is that they
mm,
didn't make it super obvious, even though everything is there and you can see
yeah,
it. These are bad guys. This is a totalitarian regime.
yeah.
Everyone over a certain age who's been in the army has been destroyed.
Yep.
They got a letter. You got a cast member from the Golden Girls who has a scarred face and is blind. You've got all this stuff, and you've got these actors who are playing it clueless because they have no idea what they're getting into. Apparently, there's as well. There's this stuff. This like relationships are frowned on in this, which is again
Okay.
which is one of the reasons why I think one of the people goes, oh, I want to have a kid, so therefore I need to be a citizen, and
See,
it's what
I read that as more. It wasn't so much for relationship with Randall, but more for the the permissions to have a family
yeah. I
because
think
of resources and the like.
it could be, but it's also adds some because the casting here as well. One of the weird things about this film is like they always tweak films anyway, but
Mm,
they got the casting right. Johnny Rico is the classic kind of chiseled guy,
yeah.
um, and they've got these two actresses, and Denise is lovely. She's perfect for her casting.
Mm,
She plays it really well.
yeah.
But then they've got Dana Meyer, who is I think a little older anyway,
Mm,
and has a lot more heart and soul just as an
yeah.
actress. And like there was a lot of bite back on like who liked who in this film and how things were done. And they even like cut out, I think, a relationship that Denise Richards' character had because it just people didn't like her that much.
Yeah. And
And it's not her fault. It's
no.
weird. It's like I hate pretty girl. And she was.
Mm.
She's really pretty in this. But and by the way, I say that and people are like, well, why are you saying that? Well, because no, because this unfortunately, especially now, if somebody makes a splash in a film like this, and she made a splash in this and she did Wild Things, which is
Yeah.
weird because like I think one of the person Neve Campbell, wasn't it?
Neve
She
Campbell, yeah.
was going to be in this, but she was doing Scream.
Mm,
Um, thank you, Wiki. But back then, it's like if you had a big Hollywood film and you were an actress in it, it meant you had a pretty thankless role.
mm,
You were there as arm candy to be one, basically.
yeah.
And if you didn't get another hit straight away, then you weren't going to have a huge long career. And in fact,
Mm,
you would get eaten up. And there's a lot of actresses at that time who were gorgeous, lovely, they were talented, but they would just get cast in more and more schlocky films. And
well,
very, very few actresses ever broke out of that. Like Sandra Bullock, to go from bloody uh the Stallone film. Oh,
oh yeah,
the one he's frozen.
to go from Demolition Man
Yeah,
Demolition Man and Speed
Yes, speed
Really.
probably was the thing that helped that tipped her
Oh
over
yeah,
the
that
edge.
that tipped us over the edge.
But
But
then
there.
she became, I believe, a producer on the next film, and she
Mm,
was one of the first people as well to do what like you have doing that with a lot of Sydney Sweeney, for
mm,
instance. She gets a lot of attention because she's a good actress. Yes, absolutely.
mm,
She's also pretty to look at. She is. So when she gets those first couple of big roles, first thing she does, she moves into production. She
absolutely.
starts working behind the scenes. She starts doing stuff. You've got your Harley Quinn. Um,
Margot Robbie, yeah.
yeah, heavily into production. Push
Mm,
that Barbie movie into being. And that's
yeah.
what actresses have to do. It's really, really important this
Mm,
because Denise Richards, for instance, she went on to do Wild Things and then she did the Bond film. And then
yep.
after that, bless her heart, I mean, poor old Charlie Sheen came next, which was never a good
Yeah.
thing.
Was she
But
in one of the scary movies, Denise
she might have
Richards?
been, but
Yeah.
it's like it wasn't that she didn't have the talent. Also, Dana
Mm,
Meyer's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, she was
yeah.
in Johnny Mnemonic just before this, I believe, or just
Yep.
after.
One
Um,
that's one that's on the watch long list. That one,
oh,
because
I'm gonna go
because
effing nuts on that.
that film is massively underrated.
Yep.
But
But
yeah,
yeah, they really struggled with longevity,
mm,
and I mean, bless as well. Very few of the actors have actually come out of this with it didn't really enhance their career. But then again, this film didn't make a lot of money.
no. And to be fair, I know that a lot of younger casts, especially, did get quite a lot of flack for being for
Oh,
being
what
a bit.
for being a bit wooden?
Yeah, which I
Yeah,
don't think is fair to any of them, to be honest,
no,
because
no, it's not.
there are subtleties to a lot of these performances.
Yes,
But it's the fact that you have them all against likes of here Clancy Brown playing Zim, who
yep.
this might be one of the most heroic roles he's ever played, ironically,
Oh,
or overtly
can I
heroic.
just say earlier on
Mm.
as well, we saw Michael Ironside wearing a tux. How often? I've never seen him wear that. He's never actually got to wear anything nice in the film because he's always the bad guy. Clancy
Mm.
Brown here as well. How old was he at this time?
Uh, I think he'd have been 40s at this point
Good grief.
because he was. I don't think he was even 30 when he did the Kurgan in Highlander,
That wouldn't surprise me actually, yeah.
and this was about a decade after that, give or take. So
I do
compared,
like his I do like his sense of authority. And also Jake Busey as well we see in this who
mm,
Jake's someone who's never quite I feel he's always suffered because of the legacy of his father.
yeah, I mean, he. Anytime I've seen Jake Busey in anything, he's always been assigned to me to pay attention
Yep.
because he's normally very, very good, whatever he does.
Yeah. Frighteners, he was excellent.
Yeah. Um, he had a very, I thought it was quite a funny cameo in The Predator, which is not a great movie, but it was a funny cameo where he plays his dad's character's son.
Yeah.
It's not overt, but it's clear because it's Jake Busey and his Gary was in Predator 2. So, but
It's pretty
it's
good.
yeah, and it's
They've as a by the way, just so the Dana Meyer thing as well. These are all meant to be. It's the classic '90s trope as well of the
mm,
high school students
yeah,
being played by 25-year-olds, which is
yeah,
really weird. We're gonna see some really weird age demographics pop up shortly with a guy who's only 5 years older than Casper Van Diem, um, but looks about 20 years older.
yeah.
I'll let you know when that pops up. But yeah, this it's weird as well. He this guy, the director would like came from action, made his name in action, then went and did Basic Instinct, which is okay, but let's call it an erotic thriller because
Mm.
technically it is. But then he did Showgirls, which I don't know what you would classify as. Like
It's a film.
camp softcore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really odd. And then this, and I always kind of wish that he'd been able to do something like like do another thing in this vein
Hmm.
and develop from here. But he actually went and chose like the 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 bland option, and he did the Hollow Man
Yeah,
with
that's true.
Kevin
Yeah,
Bacon,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that was such a like deflating experience for him that was it. He was off. He went back and he did his own thing.
yeah.
By the way, are we going to be revisiting the bingo list time now
Go on.
with the fun fact that everybody knows?
Oh, it wasn't
Did
just for cast, but
did you know actually that in this scene? Yeah, so yeah, director and blah blah blah. I think it was on everyone. Well, there's only a couple of people on set anyway. It's a private set,
hmm,
so that's
yeah,
um the weirdest thing though is just how progressive this was.
yeah.
Like nobody is actually giving a crap. It's just
Hmm.
this is just what they do. And in
Yeah,
fact, almost all of the cast get to keep their modesty. And
yeah.
I get the feeling that it was just a case of Dana was just the one who's like, look, I don't particularly mind
Hmm.
much, you know,
Yeah,
which is weird because it's
yeah.
like she arguably was the most well known of all of them at the time.
Hmm.
And I'm surprised that she decided to do this.
Yeah,
And she does, honestly, she does look like somebody in her late 20s and not a school student.
yeah.
But there we go.
But
Bless
like I
her.
say, it's incredibly progressive because this isn't played as being a sexy scene. It's not
No,
played. It's it's not even played as particularly odd that
that
men
they
and
share
women are all.
they share the same bunks.
Yeah, I mean, for the only thing about this that doesn't make this like the most progressive film imaginable is that there's 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 no obvious LGBT characters or relationships. If
Oh
if
yeah.
if it had those, it'd be progress. It'd it'd read as being the most progressive thing imaginable. And this is. I still think this is funny with him and his squad mates training. That still cracks me up.
Yeah. Awesome. He
Um,
he's still game for this though, isn't he? He's
uh,
game for this
oh
franchise.
yeah, I mean he came back for number 3
Okay.
as Colonel John Rico.
Good grief.
Uh, yeah, and he's voiced Rico in at least one of the animated productions.
Oh bless her.
So yeah,
They
he.
do the costumes though. At this point,
Mm,
anyone watching this, like, I know you're not meant to. By the way, the shuttle, the shuttle looks like a G2 transformer.
doesn't it just?
Uh, but no, even by this point, I know you're not meant to like her. And again, it's weird because she's somebody choosing essentially career over,
Mm,
just keeping a romantic relationship with a grunt who I think she's smart enough to know should not survive more than a couple of missions at the most. And I know
absolutely.
that's very heartless, but she's loving what she is doing and she wants her career.
Mm.
And people hated that.
Which I know I never got the hate for Carmen because she's always, like you said, she clearly knew what the score was once she knew that Johnny wouldn't join her in flight school.
Yeah.
And that every time we see her as a pilot, she's been the best pilot that she can possibly be. It's great
And
from
she's
that point of
she's
view.
she's loving it. It's the flying,
Mm,
it's the experience of that. I mean, they make it very convenient with the like who she's teamed up with and all of
yeah.
that. And that is a bit cheesy. By the way, I do love this captain. I
Mm,
think she kicked ass. I think she was probably my favorite character, supporting character, should I say,
mm.
in this show. But it was really good. But yeah, it did get a bit cheesy with this kind of forced relationship stuff.
Hmm.
Didn't he go on to do Will and Grace though? He did very well for himself. Yeah, he
Is
he
that who
came
this
out of this.
is?
I think it is. Yeah. Hang on, let me just double check. Da, 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 da. Ba, da, ba, da, da, there we go. Patrick Muldoon. Uh, bear with me a second, people, whilst we talk. We pause for other things.
Well, whilst Adam does that, can I just talk about the wonderful mix of CGI and model work going on here?
Yes, go for it. Go on.
Because this is wonderful. The Roger Young, the undocking sequence. For one thing, the ship design is one of the nicest bits of design in science fiction.
Mm.
But this scene just tells you everything about Carmen as a pilot. She sees everything. She knows exactly what she can do, and she's shown off here clearly for a new CO and her instructor. But she's doing it in style. I mean, this riffs on Wrath of Khan and Star Trek 6 with the Enterprise and docking sequences in those films massively.
Mm.
But this is such a brilliant combination of CGI and model work. And
It is.
there'll be
Yeah,
more of this later on
with the bugs, but yeah.
but this is just great.
I don't think this is the Will and Grace guy, by the way. So thank you, people who are listening to this going, what are you doing? You're mad. But no, this was in terms of model work as well, because they brought in Phil Tippett
Mm,
for the creature stuff. And I remember when they did the test footage for this, which was done during, I think, the post for Showgirls. And I don't remember that because of a wiki article. I actually remember that because it was a big deal that Phil Tippett was doing stuff with CG. Because Phil
yeah.
Tippett, obviously, he was protege of Ray Harryhausen,
Hmm.
and he'd done obviously the Star Wars stuff. But what they were doing is very much in the Jurassic Park meld of they were doing animation, but they were then sort of using the model work that they were doing to then feed the animation of the CGI bugs and how it all just moved fluid and really good,
Mm,
and yeah, and then the model work, as you say, there was CG stuff going on. There was a lot this it was like that transition period.
yeah.
But Tippett and the rest of the team really wanted to make sure that they got this, they made things look as vicious for the bugs as possible, and then make the ships look as, like, I don't know, as
Brutalist.
grand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she? Sorry, let me just check something. I something because I never paid attention a lot to these scenes because when you rewatch,
Mm,
you never you these are kind of like filler moments before everything else kicks off.
yeah.
But yeah, did Dizzy sacrifice herself in this moment so that he could
Um,
get to the flag, or is she still alive? We'll probably see it.
I think she was given cover and fire. She was for distraction.
Yeah. Okay, because I wondered if there was going to be sort of something foreshadowing the end, the end of the film,
Mm,
if you like, or later
yeah.
on. He does look good with the badge on.
And it's also
Yeah.
worth pointing out that if nothing else, this film provided the kit for at least 5 other productions for their
Well,
troopers going forward, which
yeah.
is
So there's a couple of things here. I mean, okay, wiki alert. I know the helmets were used in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Yes, we know that. They were sprayed black. They've probably been used in other things too. But
uh, I
one
know
of
they used them
the
in Firefly, I think, yeah, Firefly used them.
that wouldn't surprise me at all. But the one of the real interesting things is coming from um, the original source material. Starship Troopers was the first book that I believe popularized power armor.
Yeah, power armor
And
or well, it's an odd one because the power armor in Starship Troopers is is kind of like Orko's middle ground because it's not so much power armor like we think of it for Space Marines. It's more like a heavy work suit, kind of like a think the elementals from BattleTech in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, or a small mech suit, or even Titanfall, the sort of suits the guys piloting those. So it's a bit more like a rather than being proper armor. I mean, actually, to be fair, I think because Starship Troopers did have an anime adaptation in the late '80s,
Yeah.
which by all accounts was incredibly close to the books. Didn't adapt the whole thing because it only had like I think 20 odd episodes, so it never got the whole way through.
Mm.
But it was by all accounts I hear it's a fairly faithful adaptation. And the armor designs are still pretty iconic in that realm of things. But then when they did the what was it called? The CGI animated series, Hero of the Federation,
Yeah.
Soldier of Roughnecks. That was it. Starship Troopers Roughnecks.
Oh, okay.
They went all in on the armor in that one because
Hang on.
animation lets you do
What's
that.
the Hero of the Federation then?
That was Starship Troopers 2.
Ah,
That's
okay, that's why.
yeah. That's what it stuck in my mind because I was looking for the film earlier on, and number 2 came up, and I was like, "Oh, that's a flashy thing." And I remembered I'd watched it, and it's like,
Well, the
"No,
thing is, when of course, because we're 40K adjacent, as soon as you mention Hero of the,
yeah,
I'm instantly, well, there's Kane and there's nobody else.
Kane, Caiaphas
Kane.
Kane."
But yeah, it's yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were having a moment. It was good. Apologies.
It's right. I've lost my train of thought as well now, to be honest. But no,
This is what
it's
people are listening for. It's the
yeah.
quality content.
But no, it's kind of fascinating how what came before this. And like I say, this film was never intended to be the book. It
Yeah.
had no relationship to it until we realized they could market it that way.
Yep.
But it's kind of interesting that subsequent material. So Starship Troopers 2 didn't because that was the schlockiest of B movies. It was a single set with almost no budget. I think
Yep.
they just reused the armor from this, and that was it.
Yeah.
Number 3 actually did bring in the power armor at the end, and was a proper sequel because, like I say, they brought back Van Dyne, had a relatively decent, not name, but you had Van Dyne, you had Gillian Blaylock from Enterprise,
Yes.
another actress who I think deserves to have had far more roles than she's had.
Again, if you're stuck in that, you're stuck in that role, and as
Mm,
again, sci-fi as well. It's terrible for
yeah,
this typecast.
yeah,
Oh, by the way, so there is the gotta say, sorry. There's 5 years age difference between
that's
Casper Van Diem and Mr. Breaking Bad.
that's crazy to realize that.
That, my friends, is
That's
genes.
but, yeah, and if you look at them both today, you still would think there's more gap between them.
Well, I don't know, because
Actually, no,
a Breaking Bad guy is just kind of he's
he
kind of wrinkled a bit, and that's it.
a little bit grey, yeah. Van Dien though still has an annoyingly full head of hair.
I don't
Whenever I
even
see,
know what full head of hair is. I gave that up several decades ago.
look, I'm in full Shawn Michaels denial at this point of my hair. So
I've never I no I think there was a part of my I think I sort of had that sort of.
yeah,
I know I just when I was working in films I stopped shaving my head, and so my hair got long,
mm,
and I know it was receding heavily at the front, so it can't have been very nice at the back. Um, and then one day I just had enough and just shaved it all again, and that was it, and I never went back. And it was a shock to everyone when I shaved it, because I went from I think it got long, and then I
mm,
literally took a bic to it, so it wasn't like a subtle thing.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just the difference of age, and some people they just had these wonderful coifs of hair all their lives, and you do think for Van Diem, I mean, didn't he do Tarzan after this as well?
He did, and I think I think he was in one of the Beastmaster sequels as well.
God, he really.
He's done
He's somebody that I think is gonna like pop up. I think in a like an
Hmm.
Expendables film at some point.
Uh,
When was the last time we saw somebody's being whipped in a film?
yeah, I mean this is pretty brutal, to be honest. This doesn't pull its punches in terms of what a whip does to you.
This was marketed in the UK as a bit of a satire. It
Hmm.
was designed to be quite subversive. People in the UK didn't have a problem with the fact that they realized that these were a bunch of they were arrogant. They
Hmm.
were like you haven't even really seen much of the enemy.
No,
Um, so you don't know kind of what all of this is for. Um, they're advertising their tech heavily. You think this must be like they must be up against a really advanced like civilization,
yeah,
and when you realize that they're up against basically bugs, it makes you think, well, something's wrong here.
yeah,
The more you delve into it, the more it gets worrying. But
absolutely. I mean, it's. I mean, the Federation here is expansionist. It's wide from on
yes,
because they've invaded bug space and
yeah, they set
all.
down a Mormon colony
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
What the hell is that for? Is that? Do you think that's pure arrogance, or do you think that it was the idea of let's send some lambs to the slaughter almost?
Um, I mean, it's always been kind of a slightly comedic beat, to be honest.
Yeah,
But that's what's happened. Oh yes, colony of Mormons have died. Oh, but yeah, it's a funny old movie with some of the beats it makes. But the reason it was marketed as satire here is one, we got RoboCop probably better than most Americans did, mainly because
yes,
we have Judge Dredd, we have 2000 AD,
yeah,
which RoboCop stole a lot of thunder of. Let's be honest,
true, good
which is
point.
why the Stallone Dredd was ever so slightly po-faced
Yeah,
because you can't really after RoboCop, Judge Dredd couldn't really be done because you've got RoboCop doing all the same beats.
true. Yeah, good point.
But satire generally is much more of a. I've always pictured it as much more of a British thing than an American one. You do get American satires. I'm not saying that America doesn't produce excellent satire, but if you look at the differences in terms of what you get between the two countries, British satires are much more. I'm not going to say enduring, but they tend to resonate more because we have that. There's a bit more of a
Yeah,
self-awareness to some extent.
yeah,
So
yeah.
things
We
like Yes Minister, and it's why things like Red Dwarf work because yes, it's comedy, but it's a workplace comedy that still plays a lot of the science straight, but it then
goes into the
pokes all the
poke fun
holes
at
in things and
itself.
goes, yeah, it you can only do good satire if you actually love the thing you're poking fun at. It's why I absolutely adore Star Trek Lower Decks because I was worried before it started, before I watched it, because a Star Trek comedy that's animated, you watch it and there's gags in there that, well, one, a lot of the episodes are genuinely good episodes of Star Trek,
Yes,
but also the gags, a lot of them only work because the cast and crew and the writers love the subject matter and they get it
mm,
and they can make those beats hit because if you can't, then it's not going to work.
yeah. They these I saw some of the screen tests for these guys as well.
Mm.
So Dana Meyer again. So we've mentioned Johnny Mnemonic, but she has a warmth and a character. She actually doesn't. It's weird. You don't see her like she mentions her parents,
Mm.
but you get the feeling that she doesn't have any other conflict outside of this. She's a character that technically doesn't even need Johnny. She's one of two characters in this that bring a little spark of hope.
Mm.
She's one. The other is actually the young lady who wants to get into politics, and
Yeah.
she is the one that accidentally shoots the guy and then leaves,
Yeah.
which again is a great telling statement on this society that the one person that wants to make a difference is the one person that leaves before everything really kicks off.
Yeah.
But um, you just wonder. So at the moment we've still really not seen much
Mm.
of our bad guys, and the first time we're introduced to them, and I think this might be something where where they made a mistake is the first time you hear of anything that they've really done, it's this attack. So
Mm.
you instantly think, ah, well, they must be again technologically on par with humans. They must be a threat.
Mm.
But as you go through the rest of the film, it becomes more and more apparent there's no way they could have done this. They
Mm.
they 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 can fire some sparkly stuff into space, but that doesn't mean that they can then direct asteroids halfway across the galaxy to hit target. Like,
Yeah.
how does that work? It feels,
Like a false flag operation, basically.
yeah, it almost it
But
almost it almost feels like it was done by the regime.
you wouldn't be surprised to find that out.
Yeah,
For Carl maybe to go into a room after he's briefed Johnny and Carmen on something and turn around and say,
we did this.
"Yeah,
Because there's little things as well that I noticed when watching this. So just now, for instance, sorry, this is a little bit of a reaction to the video, but so he's walking away, he's about to leave, but it's the swarm of people heading towards war that pull him back in,
mm,
and it's from now on, there's almost this charge of everybody
yeah,
to go to war, and they are just running towards death. That's it. That's
yeah,
it. It's like, um, and it almost doesn't matter if there are other characters in this film. By the way, the cast list for this film was so unknown, and B so small anyway in terms of core central roles that we're going to see somebody pop up here, another veteran from Total Recall, and there are many. Like even our guy here is from Total Recall.
yeah,
Um, but he's a guy who's in the film for a total of 5 minutes, and yet he made it onto the movie poster because there was such a lack of stars. It's nuts. By the way, credit to Clancy Brown as well. This is a lovely
mm,
because he doesn't as well. He doesn't get a lot of like I'm being a hero roles.
yeah." I mean, the ones I can think of, the short-lived show Earth 2, which was between Highlander and this.
Yep.
He played the preacher in Cowboys versus Aliens,
Okay.
and otherwise, he generally plays either obvious bad guys or. Did you see the first season of Daredevil?
Yes.
He was in that as
Was
Frank
he?
Castle's. Yeah, he's Frank Castle's ex-CO. The-
Oh. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and you start off, and he plays it so well that you think he's on the up and up. I mean, it
Mm.
turns out he's actually the guy who's been funding Jigsaw's Merc operations. That he's who Jigsaw works for. Um,
Apologies for people screaming at the screen going, "Spoil!" Oh, yeah, we get. By the way, how far does this ramp home the message now?
I
Like,
know,
if
right?
you didn't think that there was something a little bit suspicious about this, I
Yeah,
just, yeah. And the weird thing is, they're so sure. they are so sure that they know how to tackle these
Mm.
creatures. And look, this is what I said earlier as well. Look, by the time you see this guy, so he was a student. The other guys have barely been out of boot camp,
Mm.
and he was calmly shooting a bug close up, and not like he's pretty cool with it. A
Yeah,
little bit of unnerves, but the fact that he's already sort of part of a project team, I just think that he was some nasty stuff went on to him. By the way,
yeah.
this one of the few scenes in films where they did cause harm to a to an animal?
I think it might be.
Because, and I know people will go, oh yes, but they're just squashing bugs. Yes, but apparently you can't do that in most
Yeah,
films because
it's
that's
it still
technically.
counts.
And this is you were saying earlier as well about like the quality of the models.
Mm.
They're beautiful. It's very much like Battlestar Galactica, but
Yeah,
like the old Battlestar
yeah.
Galactica.
OG Battlestar had that wonderful style for colonial Battlestars, which was very. It partly it came. It was the Star Wars influence played a big part of it,
Oh, sorry.
but they.
This reporter, just his little look at the end of this. Just he is apparently people have said he's one of the few voices of almost reason in this, trying to be like pacifist. But look, and boom. There we
Yeah,
go. That's it. But there are people. There's somebody on TV that says maybe there's a brain bug, and
yeah.
they talk about society. The reporter talking about just is it right to mobilize this much and there's a lot of people getting
Mm.
together and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think from now on, I don't think we hear the voice of reason.
I don't think we do. No, it's all pretty rah rah. Let's go.
By the way, uh, did this is weird. So the whole love triangle
Hmm.
is what? Why isn't Carmen ever aware of the Dizzy angle?
Um.
Because Dizzy is practically drooling over Rico for most of this film.
Yeah, and honestly, you'd be surprised if she hadn't put a knife in Carmen's back at some point. Some of the look she was giving her, but
Exactly,
Carmen.
and also as well, it's like Doogie
Mm,
clearly gets on with Dizzy more. Like he's there
mm,
all the time with her. Well, when they were in school,
yeah.
so I'm amazed that nothing was. And women have this obviously, like I'm sure growing up as well, you've been in relationships and then found out that the person you're in a relationship with has had talks with other women about you,
Mm,
talking about relationship elements that you weren't even aware of because, well,
yeah.
because they tend to look a little bit deeper than sometimes guys do.
Mm,
And I'm surprised that that never factored into this. By the
that's
way,
true.
yeah, I looked up as well, and there's a website for actors who look like each other. And yeah, this guy and the Will and Grace guy are on there. But the
Yeah.
weirdest thing is where the Will and Grace guy has kind of still got like the he's like aged and his hair's like an older age and all of that
Mm,
that stuff. This guy almost has the same hairstyle, but he's
that's
like
funny.
30 years older. And it's just one of those things where you kind of look him in the eye and it's just like, yeah, that's not good. By the way, they went from light punching to wrestling moves on a desk. I mean, that's brilliant. And they want to rip each other apart
They
all
really
over
do.
all over a woman who's like clearly not that bothered
About either of them.
about either of them. She's just concerned about her career.
Yeah.
Though I'm surprised that there wasn't like a woman on woman fight at this point.
It is
Bless.
actually kind of interesting that this film, despite having quite a few female characters,
Yep.
would fail the Bechdel test massively.
Yes. Oh. Y-
Actually, no, tell a lie, because
no.
Carmen and I think the captain have a
The
conversation.
captain also, Carmen and her pilot trainee friend
Yes, that's
who
true.
survives the film somehow, who I'm sure I've seen in bigger stuff,
Mm,
which is weird. Um, yeah, there were opportunities, but like it's the way that they're just so
Yeah,
keen.
A- and
I'm
and
gonna
and a
add in a
million
go
and a
on.
million Imperial Guard players got their aesthetic keyed in.
Yes. Wiki time, wiki update, shamelessly from the wiki, but let's call it fun fact about Starship Troopers. So the cast of aliens were told to read Starship Troopers.
That makes sense.
Um, I don't know if that impacted on them, whatever, but and there's a lot of that machismo sort of like
Mm,
they genuinely think they're gonna kick ass. They're gonna
yeah,
rock up to a place. Now, at this point, by the way, the Marines, when they did their life exercise testing, what were they firing at?
human targets.
A human
So,
target, not a bug.
hmm.
Really, just yeah. This is
It's actually
honestly
kind
it's
of
lambs to the slaughter.
it's actually kind of interesting comparing this to Aliens now you think about it, because in Aliens, the Marines are a veteran unit. I
They've
mean,
already done bug hunts.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, not necessarily the xenomorph as we know, but they've
I know.
hunted bugs of some sort.
Yeah,
Hudson even says he's only got a few weeks left to go on his duty, and then he's out. But they're all veteran troopers, apart from
yeah,
uh, the lieutenant.
true.
Whereas in this, as far as we know, everyone we've just seen board those dropships, this is their first deployment.
Yep. And
They are
and
lit.
there's one guy who isn't completely new, and he's
Mm,
the one saying, "Look, follow me, do what I do, and you will survive." I want you to remember that.
yeah.
By the way, at this point, they still think the pretty blue light is not a danger until now,
Mm,
and they're like, "Oh, maybe that's a problem."
yeah.
There we go. And it's like, how badly did they plan this?
Mm,
I'd be out of there in seconds. I would
uh,
literally be out of there in seconds.
for sure. But again, this is really nicely put together.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this on the big screen, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit, because this was
What in terms of the models or the filmmaking or the sense of drama? How?
everything, to be honest. I mean, the models were kind of a bit of a novelty at this point for how they were moving.
Yeah.
To see ships moving like this level of engagement, and I mean the collision between
Felt more energetic than the likes of Star Wars at the time
um
because they tend the bigger
yeah,
ships anyway because
yeah, I
they tended
mean
to be a bit more static. I mean, you have fight obviously space fighters.
yeah, I mean Return of the Jedi had been the biggest space battle
Yeah.
we'd seen up to this point, and to my mind still holds up as arguably the benchmark for all space battle scenes, if you want to, for composition wise. But this was kind of like, prior to this, there hadn't really been a big screen sci-fi spectacle like this. I mean, Star
Yeah.
Trek was always either single ships, or I think First Contact was about as big as it got, and that
Yeah.
was maybe a dozen Federation ships versus one cube.
This was just massive.
This was a massive armada of battleships, basically, and a swarm of dropships, and they're getting, well, Tyranid players, I hope you're prepared to overfilm a debt of gratitude.
Yes. Well, it is interesting how Tyranid-esque these are.
Mm,
I didn't see anything, even in the wiki actually, that pointed as like either GW influencing this
mm,
or the original book influencing GW. But given Alien and stuff, I think it was kind of more on
mm.
along that sort of
Well,
realm.
it's kind of interesting because initially the Nids had that very dinosaur. It's been described as a much more of a dinosaur alien aesthetic to them.
Yeah,
Uh, and they didn't get their full on redesign until I think 2002, if I remember rightly, deep into third edition. So several years after this film came out, and none of the Nids really, they didn't take any of the Tyranid warrior design. Oh,
Yep.
there goes the Sarge.
So there, guys, goes the one voice of reason,
Yeah.
the one person in charge.
Hmm.
Okay, sorry, as you were saying.
Yeah. So the NID redesign did take a lot more from the alien aesthetic, especially when you look at like the Tyranid warriors and the Hive Tyrant, where they gained that big old crest, very much like the alien queens.
Yep.
But in terms of when they evolved the claws for Siphon Tanton, like they owe a big debt to the bugs of Starship
Yeah.
Troopers, and especially the swarm tactics as well, which has become like the trademark of the horde of Hormagaunts and Termagaunts.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching this, and I've read takes on this scene from so many different 40k novels and the like, with Guard versus Nids. It it's not even it,
I think this
it's
is.
become the trope in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
I think there's a tragedy as well. I saw someone
Mm,
talk about this as well, and this is just somebody talking about this. I don't even think this is wiki, but um, so he's the guy who wanted to be a lawyer, I
mm,
believe, or something like that, or got into Harvard. But the worst thing is, she's the one who wanted to be a mum.
yeah,
She's the one who was doing it because she wanted a family. And the fact that you don't actually see what happens to her is probably one of the nastiest. It's like
yeah,
the young lady, forgotten her name now, the young lady at the end of Alien,
yeah.
who's not Ripley, obviously. Um,
Lambert, yeah,
Lambert,
yeah.
yeah. You don't see what happens, and
No.
that's almost the worst thing.
Mm,
But yeah, it's crazy as well because they're running, they're kids and they're running,
mm,
and there's no one technically in charge. And oh, then you've got this goofball, which is like, look, there's a time and a place, mate, to report news, but this is clearly not it. I love the fact that the cameraman, right,
that's
as a
commitment right there.
as a cameraman or ex-cameraman, I'm telling you now, you would do that. Okay, yes, you would fear for your life. Yes, you would run away. But when you're holding a camera, you lose all sense of awareness. I mean, you shouldn't do, especially if you're on stage or around other people. But a lot of the time, you're so focused on doing your job, and your job is staring, that you constantly try and get the best shot, which is why he's not running as fast as he should do, and he keeps stopping to get
Yeah.
more footage. He's also got as well a very 90s camera. It's a very, very 90s camera from
Mm,
back when video cameras were still pretty chunky, beta, stuff like that. I've just realized I never saw any reference to this, but how close are their guns to the guns in Aliens?
yeah.
Can't be too far off.
No, I mean they do show a lot of the DNA of the old pulse rifle, but whereas the pulse rifles were built off of Thompsons, so they have that nice short SMG kind of giving them the body to work off of, so they could still be quite short and
Yeah.
compact. These ones feel much more like battle rifles. So I'm not sure what they built off. I'm sure there's been some stuff about it over the years.
I love the fact that they have the shotgun.
Yeah,
I
I
mean
love
that
it.
that's a good last stand as well.
Mm, I love it when a gun actually that's something that you see. It's like, I mean, we know the pulse rifle had the grenade launcher.
Yeah.
They've expanded aliens out so that there are versions of it that have a shotty instead, which is a
Mm.
love. Or you can replace the grenade with a giant shotgun round, which is hilarious. But no, it's a nice bit of design so that the gun does have that fallback option built into it.
This there's something beautiful about this in that there's no responsibility taken.
Mm,
And it's almost like they don't change. Might change that ideology in terms of how they tackle the bug. But for all you know, it's written by the same person, and
yeah.
it's literally like two lines. And oh
Oh,
yeah,
Paul Rubens, bless him.
no? Is that Paul Rubens?
Yep, it's Pee Wee Herman.
Really?
Yes.
My God, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating little microcosm of what we have now, where you have a a reasoned expert providing an opinion and a theory, and then a very loud provocateur just poo-pooing it entirely. And yeah, it's kind of a bit pressing, that bit, to be honest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have a quick look here. Um, so the other pilot that we see at the beginning,
Hmm.
the other graduate that
Yep.
survives till the end, is played by Amy Smart,
Really?
who, yes, who had a lead role opposite Ashton in The Butterfly Effect. And she
Yeah.
has obviously gone on to do
She was
decent
in
stuff.
she was in the Crank films with Statham, wasn't she?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think she was.
Yeah. I know she's
My
done an
God.
awful lot of stuff, to be fair. An awful lot
Uh,
of stuff.
yeah, she's actually like, yeah, good career as well. Oh, she was in Stargirl.
Was she?
Yes.
I've not watched that show yet. I keep meaning
I've
to.
not. I keep, yeah, it's one of
I've
those
heard
things.
good things about it, but that's actually kind of cool. And
It's
would
one of those things as well that somehow survived when everything else DC sort of fell apart.
yeah, that was Stargirl was an interesting one because it wasn't really part of the main CW DC verse. Warning listeners, ramble on diversion incoming.
Don't worry.
But but it then kind of got folded in, kind of, but not really. So bits of it did show up in the CW shows eventually, and I think there was a brief cameo in their version of Crisis, but it was just very, very weird. Good show
No,
by all accounts.
by the way, this arguably that might be the one gratuitous body shot in this film, and it's over a guy because that
That's
was a
very
very slow pan over him.
that's very true.
And by the way, this is God. We have done a bit of movie watching on this one, haven't we? Sorry, folks. Sorry,
I mean,
but it's.
it is a good film. You can't help
I
but watch bits of it.
I
It's
just want to know if this bit here is just the kiss on the glass, whether that was improvised or not, because that was the moment that every guy just went, okay, I want the two of them to get together.
or just said, Johnny, stop being a dick.
Or John, stop being that would be nice. I like the fact they're just going back there. So are they
Yeah.
going back to they are going back to the same planet,
Uh,
or is this another planet?
I think it's a different
Is this
planet because the planet they were invaded started was actually Klendafu. For I think that was actually the main planet, the
right?
Bug Homeworld, and this is another one there.
Another one, and then they're going to go back to Klandathu.
I think that's right. I,
Right. Okay.
I'm more than willing to be wrong, to proven wrong. But again, this is a
It's a film as well. Somebody mentioned this on some sort of review. It's a film that's very much lit like a CW show.
oh yeah,
And Red Letter Media said that you see, when I say something and take it from somewhere source, I say what the source is. Red Letter Media said if you watch the likes of Showgirls, you'll see that it is a really, really well shot film. Like the cinematography is amazing.
mm,
You look at this film and everything is flat, everything is lit for TV. Everything feels like TV. Michael Ironside could be the bad guy in a CW show.
yep.
I mean, also, as well,
I mean,
he
he
is
has
half.
been the bad guy in the CW
Oh, has
show
he?
more. I think so. Yeah.
Oh, let's face it. Yeah, it's inevitable.
Mm.
Hang on a second. Does he?
I mean,
I'm trying to look at his arms. I know he's got his false arm, but has he got like a glove or something on his other hand as well?
uh,
I mean, he's definitely rocking that. I'm
he might.
older, but I'm gonna look like a bit of a steel truck kind of thing going on. No, he
No, no.
hasn't. No, he hasn't. So sorry, my bad. I do like his hand garb here. There we
Mm.
go. Cosplay for Adam in a couple of years. I'm gonna go as Michael Ironside. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the limitation now my age gives to me. I'll tell you what, Shawn Michaels and Michael Ironside in Starship Troopers rock up to a Comic Con. You'll know we're coming.
Especially if Sean is looking a little bit on the pudgy side. Let's be
It'll
honest.
be post-retirement Shawn Michaels.
No, that dude seems to have just reached a point now where he just hasn't really aged in like the last 10 years. He's kind of reached that point where he's annoyingly fit still.
Well, let's
Despite,
face it, he had reached a certain age anyway, so it was just
yeah,
like, yeah. I love they're doing it again though. They're literally just they look like Cub Scout.
yeah. There's
I
no tactics here. It's
there's no
walking in
I,
en masse. There's no point men. There's no.
and I know the whole deal with this is that they have been suckered into a trap.
Hmm.
But there's I don't know. I just get this feeling. It's like they are kids. They are Lord of the Flies almost
Yeah.
in terms of military.
And the
And
thing, even the Sugar here and the sergeant, no, the corporal who gets her
yeah,
arm burnt off in a minute. None of them are much older than
no, you're
the
right.
other
It's
guys. They're
you
all
almost can't tell the difference.
yeah. Ratchek is the outlier. He's older by decades than everyone else in his unit. Same thing with Zim.
And the way that the soldiers fight as well, the way they fire the guns, it
Hmm.
actually feels like, and I'm going to say this as somebody who was bullied in school, it looks like bullies picking on a kid
Yeah.
because then they're not that confident, but they know in mass they can kind of do something,
Mm.
and it's all bravado until it actually gets real. And I think there's only actually one or two guys who really are quite tough. Like this guy, I think later on he genuinely is tough, even in the moment.
Yeah.
He does
Yeah.
he doesn't muck around. But it just yeah, it's really and just it's the I think as well the way they hold their guns. It's like they've had no. Did they have boot camp? I'm sure they had boot
Y-
camp. Yes, no, it was one of the it's one of the fun facts in the wiki that there were the heat exposure or something during boot camp. But it doesn't look as though they've had boot camp.
Mm.
They're being told to run and move around, and they're not being told, right, is the military expert on set? This is what we do. Instead, a guy sat down in a small ditch is going to go, we're going that way, and he's going to point his hand in a military style, and then that's all we hear. And they're
Mm.
all just sort of holding their guns up, going, I
Yeah.
think this is right. They might as well be holding Nerf guns.
It, you're
And
right.
they're in a circle, and my goodness, if they drop their guns any lower, they would be firing at themselves through the
Absolutely.
corpses. Oh well,
And
sorry.
Cuba tanker. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Now I believe this was, by the way, like you could tell this was being set up with this poor Sarge. It was just like so obvious. It's like let me stand just so that the thing can get me just enough. Um, But I believe this was one of the toys that was released.
Really?
So for those people who don't know, the 90s, so 80s had right, it's economics time.
Yeah.
80s had super low oil prices, which led
Mm.
to all sorts of special things going on, and lots of oil was making lots of money for people in America, and so on and so forth. Anyway, as a consequence of this, plastic was cheap. As a consequence of that, anyone who was anyone would make action heroes out of anything that they could, because also Star Wars had made a fortune
All the
and
money.
everyone was after that money. And they
Absolutely.
realized after a while that family friendly films don't always have a massive amount of characters. And in fact,
Hmm.
some of the best villains are in horror movies, which is where you got the Alien and Predator toy lines. Do you remember in the 90s there were entire toy lines dedicated to
I
films
still have some.
that kids could never watch, which I always thought was
Yeah.
hilarious.
It,
And they did the same for this. They had toys, there's Starship Trooper toys for this. By the way, what is with the color coding here? So these bugs are orange, and the
The
other
other
bugs
ones
are
are
green.
green. Yeah, there's you kind of wondered, was it just did they just run out of separate coloured paints on the day? But then you have them both in the same scene. You can see
Yeah.
sugar in the background.
Well, yeah, and is that him or is that Dizzy? Because Dizzy's literally half and half. There we go. Look, she's been hit strategically with a line of green slime half across. Like, if she turns her head, go on, turn
Yeah,
your
and
head.
it's almost straight down.
And they
But
actually
none
use
on her
that,
face.
and they use that shot in the promotional film at the beginning, which is really crazy. It's only when you watch it a second time that shot of her saluting is used in the promotional film.
That's a
So
good point.
they do almost like a time jump. It's brilliant. And then Michael Land says, "What do I get to do if I do this film right?" "Well, you'll die." He's like, "Well, that happens all the time. What else?" "Oh, you get to wheel out a load of beer and look like a hero."
I'll take it.
And what do people want? They want beer and they want
A
a
violin.
violin.
See, I love that Jake's character, though, despite being kind of a bit of an asshole, he also
Plays
plays
the
the
violin.
violin, and very well.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because he's the first 3 seconds is him being a bully, but he's not. Then he's
Hmm.
a supportive character. Then he's given a promotion and doesn't want it, and admits that he's not good enough and he wants to be a grunt.
Hmm.
And you feel for him at the end because he's still a grunt. It's like this conversation. I really like this because I didn't expect this kind of conversation to like happen at this point in a film and a character that we just met. Um, I mean, yes, it then works very well because of he then goes and dances and stuff like that. But it was like they were about to have a really deep conversation about stuff, and then she gets taken away, and then Michael Ironside is like, "What else do I do in this film behind giving beer?" It's like, well, you basically encourage the two lead characters to bone each other, so I can do that. By the
Yeah.
way, that guy who just passed and interrupted in them, that's the one that they have this conspiracy theory that Michael Ironside doesn't like him and gets him killed later.
He's not the when he snipes us when a bug snatches
Yes, that's it.
you. Harsh.
Look at Jake. You see, Jake Busey is basically taken over from Doogie Howser at this point. And
Hmm.
and also in terms of looks, he almost has that same sort of it's like creepy but
Yeah.
in a good way, not creepy in a creepy way.
Hmm. They both have that blonde, just almost Aryan look to them, whilst not being quite so disturbing to be full on.
Now, this moment, I mean, I don't think we've actually talked to each other whilst the sex scene is going on, especially one where the woman is tackling the man like this. So apologies, but a little word on Dynamite. So she's one of those. Apart from this, which is weird because she's sort of mostly known for this,
Hmm.
but she's done a lot of really like she's done a lot of other films as well.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that
Sh-
Verhoeven didn't use her for more, actually, and I'm
hmm.
surprised everyone didn't use her for more after this.
I
But
have to admit, I'm kind of annoyed that because she was Barbara Gordon in the
yes,
Birds of Prey TV show from the early 2000s, and
it
her and the
wasn't bad.
Batgirl. Yeah, one, that wasn't a bad show.
Yeah.
Two, one of the actresses in that, the one who played Dinah, later played Alice in the Batwoman TV show,
Oh wow.
which I hadn't realised. But she's a brilliant actress as well. But to see her wear this brief scene of the pilot of Birds of Prey where she's wearing the full Batgirl costume
Yeah,
is one of those moments you just think, how did she not get a chance to do a proper Batgirl
I know.
in her own right?
But
But
I'm surprised she just didn't do more in general. But again,
hmm,
Hollywood was fickle at this point.
yeah,
So there we
I mean,
go.
she does still do stuff, small
Well,
roles,
what
but
else
she
do I
just
do apart from getting beer and like telling a guy to, oh, you get to kind of tell them to go ahead and just keep going.
yeah.
He didn't. Did he actually do up the door, or did he leave it open?
He left it open. He didn't
Okay.
bother to do it back up.
I love that. Both of them are like, yeah, we can do 20 minutes. So I decided to have a quick look and say, well, what's she doing nowadays? And the danger of looking at any actress, obviously, is they've
Mm,
aged, and like that's not a rude thing. Every person ages, so
absolutely.
you're going to see somebody who isn't. Oh, look, by the way, he's aware that something is up there.
Mm,
He is absolutely aware that something is going on. He's aware that you probably shouldn't be up there. There's a problem. So wait for him to. There we go. Yeah, something's going on. Um, and the annoying guy. There we go. He's like,
find a high spot. Get some
yeah,
better
find a
seat.
higher. Yeah, go to higher ground. Go
Stand
somewhere
out.
higher. Stand there, and it's the target basically. Um, Vespids, anyone? I like the
Yeah.
fact that because I mean they didn't. There were a couple of races that they kept out of this from the book,
Mm,
and they changed the look of this as well. But again, it's this thing. They clearly didn't know that there were flying bugs, and
mm.
yet surely this is one of your main enemies.
Well, the funny thing is, there was a graphic novel prequel to the film,
Yeah.
which I've got a copy of it around here somewhere, because of course I do. That's what I'm like.
Mm.
And it basically, most of it follows Ratchek as a young man on the survey mission that first discovers the bugs. It's how he
Oh,
loses his
wow.
arm. And it's kind of interesting because he's probably the one guy who, in the entire Federation, who does know
Yeah.
absolutely everything about, or more than about bugs than anyone else. S- But they kind of retire him
Yeah. Yeah, I
because,
was gonna say because it's weird. They it's almost like well towards the end as well. You see that recruits get younger anyway, but they're pulling more and more people out, which is why he comes back. But also as well, it's like you got the likes of Zim who are clearly desperate to be back in the fight.
yeah, and Zim's not an old man.
No,
I
which is
mean,
really weird.
yeah,
But
but he still has to take
so
a demotion to private to get
sorry,
back
but
out.
before we get too gory, so a quick thing about Dynamite because I wanted to
Hmm.
check up on her, and I just thought from the characters that she's played, I'm betting that she still looks like herself. She's just a couple of decades older.
Mm,
You know, when an actress like just ages and
yeah.
it's them, and then you've got the flip side where they've literally used every bit of plastic surgery known to man.
Mm,
And lo and behold, she looks fantastic. She
yeah.
looks her age, but she looks absolutely fantastic. She
I
looks
think.
happy. She's got
Yeah.
a family. And it's just like she somehow managed to get through the Hollywood system
Mm,
and made it into. And she, hubby there in shots, them looking happy. She does weird dance classes.
yeah. I was
Good
going to
for her.
say she kind of came from a dance background anyway, and I
Ugh.
remember seeing some stuff where she kept doing that as at least as a hobby,
Yeah.
and that's a great way to
Uh,
keep
it's-
yourself
yeah. And
healthy.
it's just grounding as well. It's
Mm,
just like so I'd be interested. I know they've done obviously panels and they talk about stuff that was going on.
mm.
Now, what was he looking at? Hmm. Um.
Oh, one of
But
the best line reads in the entire film.
oh yes, I wish he'd just leant forward and gone, "Hello, hello, hello." So
I mean,
finds out.
if you had any doubt after his fingers went that deep into the dude's skull, I mean, come on.
So I get to give beer to people, give people a violin. I encourage people to have sex, not once but twice. I wear a tuxedo. I say some cheesy lines. Michael Ironside was having a blast during this.
Oh
And
yeah.
of course, there's a bit of almost a nod as well to Total Recall
Mm,
because, well, for a start, these two were in Total Recall
yep.
because he's the one. Was it our panicking guy is the one with Quaid in his chest? Doesn't Michael Ironside
Oh, yes,
actually
isn't
kill him
he?
in that? Doesn't he? Yeah, Ironside kills him in that, doesn't he?
Uh,
Or
I
is it
th-
like like a grunt or something like a second in command?
I'm trying to remember now, to be honest.
But I know that at the end of this, Michael Ironside obviously they have a fight in the lift,
And
and he loses both his arms.
mm,
And of course, he's got the one arm here, and it's almost like a nod to it. And there's three Total Recall characters, which is great.
yeah,
Oh man, I want Verhoeven to come back and do just one more film, like American
yeah.
film. Just
I mean, I suspect that this, the performance of this and Hollow Man's critical and financial reception, because it didn't really light the box office on fire.
yeah,
Plus, coupled with his general experience on that film, didn't really enamor him to the Hollywood system, which you can't fault him for. Let's be honest, he put his licks in. He delivered a hell of a run of movies.
yeah, he
If you
did.
look at his filmography, is one that is frankly stunning to look at.
Especially that peak period as well.
Mm.
By the
Oh,
way, I didn't realize Verhoeven became the first director to turn up and accept a Golden Raspberry in person.
yep,
So actors did it later, but he was the first director, which I
yeah,
like. But Showgirls and 100 million from, or more than 100 million from video rentals, and that was because it
really,
was hired out by 12-year-olds. Yes, indeed.
lordy.
He did all right. I mean, even Hollow Man, like this and Hollow Man received Oscar nominations.
I mean, I'm assuming they were for the effects work.
Yes, I
Yeah, because
believe
I
so.
mean, they
Yes.
did both have exceptional special effects. And
Yeah.
the year this one came out, there wasn't really a lot of competition.
Oh, well,
Not that I can
yes.
remember. What,
Titanic?
what? All right, yeah, that. I mean, Titanic was kind of like, it's
Yeah.
Jim Cameron.
The,
You're never
these
going to win special effects
yeah,
up against Jim
these
Cameron.
these got nominations, but yeah, it was I mean
Yeah.
also as well, you were only ever gonna get so much out of this.
Mm.
Um I do think though these flying bugs look so they're so expressive. It's the way that you would do NIDS. It's also
Mm.
a great way that you would do like because Tyranids as an enemy, I mean it really works well with the sort of um can I say Zulu-like
Yeah,
situation?
I would say so. I mean, this is kind of like a classic scenario. I mean, Zulu influences a lot of
I
stuff
mean,
going forward.
for people not aware, because I appreciate this is Mike. Again, I don't even know if people watch that film because of the cultural implications. But
Well,
it is a small. Okay, a platoon as well. Platoon is a good example.
yeah.
Supposedly advanced force who believe that they're
Mm.
superior, surrounded by what they would call a more primitive force.
Mm.
In some of these cases, we're talking about races, unfortunately, or peoples. But in this case, obviously, we're talking about bugs here. But it's this whole idea of they feel they're superior, but just sheer savageness, it just overwhelms them. There's only so much that you can take.
Mm. Well, I mean, Zulu's actually a really interesting case because that's kind of like the surface reading of it, but in reality, it's actually not. 'Cause for anyone who's not aware, Zulu is the dramatization of the Battle of Rorke's Drift,
Yep.
which is the single largest number of Victoria Crosses ever awarded by the British Army for a single engagement.
Okay.
Now, it happened in the wake of the British Army being massacred at, I think, Isandwala
Yep.
by the Zulus, which was one of the largest massacres in military history by
Okay.
anyone. There was literally an army disappeared. There was barely any survivors, if any,
Yeah.
because the Zulus were an incredibly They were a
I mean,
lethal fighting force, but they
an
were also
incredibly
very
potent force, but they were also
yeah.
numerous because it was home turf for them.
But
So
this is true. But they were also a highly skilled force,
yes,
and they weren't savages. That's something that Zulu goes into great pains to get across,
yes,
because for Zulu, it's something that film stuff set around that era dealing with colonial history it's a tricky one to get right. But the Zulus were a very intelligent nation. They were a very forward-thinking nation in a lot of ways. The way they fought was very forward-thinking, and they learned the lessons that the colonial nations ins taught through their conquests.
yeah,
They used modern. They yes, they had swords and spears and shields, but they also used modern rifles. They knew how to use them. They and the Battle of Rorke's Drift is an interesting one because it's the Zulus using what was their strengths in that they knew they knew the terrain, they knew they were coming off a massive victory, so they had that psychological advantage in their favor, and they were going up against a massively outnumbered force.
yeah,
But then the defenders of Rourke Drift, who bear in mind were a two fairly recently commissioned lieutenants, one of whom wasn't necessarily a frontline officer, and he was the senior officer in command. He was an engineer.
yeah,
The rest of the garrison, like you say, it was barely a platoon. I think Welsh Guards or Welsh Rifles. I may be getting that wrong, so I do apologise. But a lot of them were also injured and
yeah,
sick, and there were a number of irregular personnel as well who took part. But for part of the reason they withstood was that, well, they fought their balls off and they earned the respect of the Zulus attacking. The Zulus didn't.
yes.
They could have carried on,
They stopped.
but
Oh, you see at the end of the film as well the tribute that
they
they give
salute
them.
them, yeah, because they can see that bravery. And with this, because the bugs are they're a different. They're not just a different culture to us. They're a different species entirely.
Yeah,
So they don't look. They're not humanoid. I mean, there's only the brain bug that might be classified as sentient by our standards, and that's
true.
only because Carl can read him.
Yeah,
And it's kind of why in future iteration, things like the Tyranids and they work an enemy race because psychologically we struggle to get into the heads of a lot of people struggle to get into the heads of people just who have different religious, cultural, or skin tone to ourselves. Let's be honest.
yeah,
Let's be brutally honest with humanity at this point. But to translate that into a completely different species that we share no similarities with,
yeah,
it's a very effective tool to use. And it's something that a lot of sci-fi writers they work very hard to turn the tables on. There's a lot of very good fiction out there where you have humans, but also races who are clearly non-humanoid, and they work to try and. Adrian Tchaikovsky has a brilliant series where one of the points of view races are basically uplifted spiders. You
oh,
follow
wow.
their evolution to full sentience because
Yeah,
they've been laced with a virus that was intended for apes or ape analogs. And there's some wonderful stuff where you have them meet humans for the first time, and the spiders are fine, but most of the humans have a real hard time dealing with sentient spiders. And and some of them even they struggle even after common ground's been found because there's that mental block that they just can't accept that the spiders are not even that they can't accept that they're sentient. They just can't accept that they don't have it in for humanity in some way. It's just it's interesting stuff. So
Hmm. They play a little bit. I think this. So we've just seen the death scene of Dizzy.
hmm,
Fair play as well. Like our I kind of want to call him a himbo, but he's not. So the pilot, who is obviously not Mr. Will, so let's call
yeah,
him not Will. Um,
I think his
but
name's Xander, the
yeah,
character.
but he actually looks so good coming out to defend. He
Mm,
actually his uniform looked like a better attack uniform than the rest of the guys because their helmets kind of look like training helmets. It
yeah,
almost looks like they're like studying boxing
mm,
in GCSE.
yeah. But that
Um,
look with the black flight
yeah,
slash combat suit
it
with the
worked.
black body armor over top.
But
Mm,
also you get this really mixed moment here as well, where like the other side of the love triangle was still sort of trying to be friends with Rico,
mm,
but not, but is, and then surely she would clock that there was something a little bit more going on than just friends, given what he's saying about her, and
mm,
I don't know. It's that so to people at the time as well, this film, when it was being edited, they cut out a love scene between Xander and God, I'm terrible. I can't even remember the cast list of all these people now.
Carmen.
Yeah, it's Carmen. Thank you. It's weird as well because I want to say posh girl, and that's almost as much of a
Yeah.
generalization, but she does remind me of someone I
Mm.
went out with once, so who
It's kind
was
of
posh.
interesting you say about from coming out scene though, because I mean, I kind of get why from the potential reception to the character and turning audiences against her. Equally, it kind of might have added a bit more of a human element to her because she's very much
She goes through the ringer in this film.
she
She
does.
she does. Her character is not bad, and also as well, Denise Richards does exactly. See, somehow I remembered. She does exactly what is asked of her. She
Mm,
doesn't. She's not in. It's not meant to be an Oscar-winning film for actors.
no.
Nobody comes off particularly well in this. But again, this is the tragedy is that she had this. She had Wild Things, which yes, I saw. Of course, I did. I was a kid at the time.
Yeah.
Everyone saw it. There's actually a moment in there as well where she does some eye acting,
Mm.
which is brilliant.
I
Like,
mean,
like
Wild Things is one of the. I
it's
remember when that
good.
came out. It's that and Bound are probably
Yeah,
some of the best crime
Sh-
thrillers of the late 90s.
they were just wrapped up in the post Total Recall. Let's sell it with
Mm,
sex. Um,
mm.
but then she did Bond, and again, she read the lines she was given.
Yeah,
She wore
that
the costume. It's not her fault, but that was
no.
it. That was it. She's not like a producer now. She's not like a Margot Robbie, who I've now remembered the name of as well. I'm on a roll. Who she wasn't. Her agents didn't say get a lot of production going, get a lot of this going, get a lot of that. Um, yeah, it's just it's nuts that their Hollywood careers are so short. This is an interesting theme. Johnny has been in 2 battles? 3? 3?
Free, yeah.
Right. He's now in charge. He's got a whole he's got a support mechanism. He's got, like, staff. By the way, is Jake Busey a grunt at this point still?
I'm genuinely not sure, but he's clearly
I think
Rico's
he
number
I
3,
I
number 2
think
man.
I think he's just being considered as he's the sounding board. The
Yeah.
weirdest thing is, oh my god, he's like Cup or Ironhide. Is the old timer.
Mm,
And yeah, they think that he's even he's like he's there in front of a bunch of kids and they do look like kids.
mm. And I think that might be kind of why they did cast most of the actors as that
Oh, what? So they could have that almost weird
I think
transition.
I think so. So when you do bring in this bunch of genuine kids,
It makes
it's
it
such a
really
start.
apparent.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine that wasn't something Verhoeven and co were thinking of.
Now, quick question:
Mm.
if you have had ships in orbit and they get knocked out by blue glittery stuff, do you put ships in orbit again? No. Look what's
Certainly,
happening.
certainly not that close together again. Because
No, that just is ridiculous.
um,
I always love, by the way, the prop at the back of that set. There's
of
just
revolving
something.
door.
Yeah, that's weird.
I
That's
get
a
what it
health
is.
hazard.
It's supposed to be a mechanism to secure the command bridge, but it's just
It just keeps going.
it's
That's what I
apparently
don't
yeah.
understand.
If it was just stationary, but it's not, and it's see this bit where you see the Rodrigan cut in half. That's quite brilliant.
That is, and it as well. It's that. Do they? You see the people. You can see the people exiting.
Yep.
But it's. I like the fact as well. She jumps on and just goes like, "I need to save people," and it's like, I think we're pretty well done at this point.
Yeah.
I need to find out who the captain was as well. By the
I know.
way, Verhoeven is doing a film. He's prepping it. It's called Young Sinner.
Oh.
And he's teaming up with the RoboCop screenwriter as well.
Oh.
So that's good.
Oh.
Yeah. She's gone. She was good though.
Mm. And I love the escape pod in this,
Yes.
just because it's so bonkers.
I'm. It's weird. It just a lot of the films at the time as well. When they imagined the future, they imagined things that were less practical than they really should be. It's like
Absolutely.
there are ways to do things. And and of course, typically they just escape whilst everyone else is clearly stunt people that are hired to jump back. Oh, that was it. Does this remind you of the Running Man?
Yes.
Is it the Running Man pod?
Not quite, but it's got a lot of Running Man pod DNA in it. I will admit.
Okay. Uh, exciting times, folks. I'm using Google. Apparently, it is the stupidest escape pod ever, which is good to know. I mean, it does look like the beginning of some sort of ride.
Yep.
And does it have? It doesn't actually have any wings. Now, I know a pod in space you shouldn't really have wings, but the whole idea of a pod is that at some point you're going to hit an atmosphere
Yeah.
after you've hit people.
That's not the sort of vessel you really want to be in for any amount of time.
Right. I'm
But
just sorry. I'm actually looking up. Uh,
oh, that's it. Jake's character is now the comm
oh,
guy.
interesting. Somebody else on Reddit has actually just made the same the point that I was going to make towards the end of this film, and I think I might as well make it now then.
Go on.
So RoboCop.
Yes.
Who's the big bad person? Who's the big bad entity? Person, entity, force, feeling.
Omni
Right.
consumer products. Or
What
dick.
happens? Right. What happens to that entity at the end of RoboCop?
Fuck all.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So the bad guy, the main bad. I'm going to say bad guy because we can call a company the bad guy. We can absolutely do that. We in Vought, like in the 7, we say Vought is the bad guy because they are. So in RoboCop, the bad guy doesn't get any damage done to them. In fact, RoboCop takes out the one person who could frame them for all sorts of fun and games. By the way, they have guns that are available on the outside of their ship. Normally, you would have guns on the inside. It's easier to use them, but there
Yeah.
we go. But yeah, RoboCop takes out the bad guy. But the difference between this and RoboCop is that RoboCop had a secondary baddie and a main baddie individually that were more effective. Here,
Yeah.
you don't have that. You literally have nothing. I mean, technically, Xander might, well, he's kind of antagonistic, but he's been good for at least the last 30 minutes and has
Yeah.
been downright heroic in situations. Plus, he looks better holding a gun than the Marines do. He still
Absolutely.
does. But anyway, oh, and yeah, that was unfair. He didn't need to get spiked through the crotch, but there we go. Anyway, so yeah, RoboCop ends with the bad guy not really being taken care of. The secondary bad guys are. RoboCop does what he does. Everyone cheers for the hero, but the bad guy is still doing his stuff.
Yeah. I mean, OCP make it through. I think it's only when you get to the four.
Third one.
No, are they
Well,
gone
actually,
in the
no.
third one?
In so in the
No, in
in
the
the
third
sec
one they've merged.
yeah in the second one, the old man is played more as the bad guy,
Mm,
which he wasn't in the first one.
yeah, and
And in the
I because
go on.
there were four Team E movies done in I think the late '90s,
Ooh,
early 2000s,
okay.
where Murphy's son was an executive for the company that had kind of replaced OCP,
Okay.
and he was spearheading a new RoboCop program.
Hmm.
They literally built a. They say replacement. The suit looked like a copy, pretty much, of the
Yeah.
RoboCop suit, just a bit nicer. But it was
By the way, this is
interesting.
genuinely nice lighting here.
Yeah,
It's at least CW. It's still pretty CW. There you go. Anyway, keep going.
I mean, I'm sure I've seen these caverns in at least 5 other productions of various
Use the force. Xander is this way. Oh, and that girl. But yeah, no. Yeah, they do. So it's weird. RoboCop ends on a high, but it's not.
It's a bittersweet high.
Yeah, this
If
is
you rem-
even weirder because what they're doing now has no repercussion.
yeah,
What they do now has no importance. And Rico is senior, but it doesn't matter what he does in this moment because he's senior, he's kind of like protected.
yeah, I kind of
It's
get what you mean.
weird. You'll see what I mean. It's like he doesn't do badly. He could literally walk around the corner and chill out for 20 minutes because nobody knows what's going on here apart
Mm,
from, well, it's now the small group of them that have teamed up. The rest of them are going a different way. He, by the way, doesn't know who is in that group, and that group is not even the group that apparently does the big thing anyway.
yeah,
But it's just so weird. It's like it's when you see it in the second or second viewing, then it sort of hits home. This is not the pivotal moment. This is not what people will remember. This is
mm,
not the thing that might change the tide of the war. The only thing that actually helps in that situation is actually what Xander does here.
yeah. Giving Carmen the knife, and then she can
Yeah,
slice the bug's thing off.
because if if he hadn't given her the knife, if she hadn't swiped it off, then the fact is that Doogie might have had a problem when he tried to do his mind meld because he would have got stabbed.
Yeah, but also it was her chopping the thing off that partly led to the brain bug retreating.
Oh yeah, that's true actually. Yeah,
Oh, this is such a gnarly bit of
it is.
effects.
And this is still a kids movie.
Yeah, I think it was only like a 15.
Well, they were very careful of the placement.
Hmm.
People have said as well that, I mean, apart from that's like real sort of Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of. It's quite
Hmm.
funny. But yeah, people have said as well that the way that Denise Richards acts here as well, and a little bit later as well when she has her final scene, it's
Hmm.
almost like she's she's genuinely gutted because she realized that this was a good man,
Hmm.
and that this was that he was the man that she wanted to be with. And then on the flip side, you have Rico, who realized that Dizzy was the girl that he'd always
Hmm.
wanted to be with. And so both of them at the end up with the person they don't want to be with.
Yep.
And it's weird. So the brain bug disappears off here, and it's not like they've beaten it. They've not captured it.
Nope. They've
They've
just got
just
a
they're just
draw.
running away.
Excellent use of a pocket nuke, though. I do love how this one does have these pocket nukes that they can load into a launcher with no regard whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just
Well, it's the one thing I think of when I see this is, hang on, that
didn't she
almost
have a
look.
whole arm a minute ago?
Sorry, some of this maybe it's the stream we're watching, but some of the muzzle flash looks so fake. Then it was almost like MS Paint. It does. It looked like MS Paint.
Fair.
It is. Wow, that I never noticed that before. But that's like they've really just. Oh yeah. So anyway, what was it? Vortex grenades
Yep.
in 40K. This is what you accept. You've got to have your character do this. Though I kind of wish it wasn't this guy. I kind of wish it was the Boosie character
Yeah,
because
it's
the
because that'd
Boosie
probably
character is kind of not really. He's actually had it pretty easy all the way through this film.
got stabbed through a hand. Otherwise, he's been fine.
And this though he does get a pretty good scene, like you do believe him.
Absolutely.
I read somewhere, by the way, that these guys actually have to do at least one element of this as a genuine run away from an explosion. But I don't know which part because obviously maybe it was that bit, but there's at least one bit where they did have to run and
Thorny.
they were gonna set something off behind them. This, by the way, is the Denise Richards. It's just a tiny little moment, and you're like, yep. And all through this as well, all through the Dizzy stuff, bit by bit, Rico's character has become more and more disassociated from the person that he was at the beginning. Now
Yeah.
he literally doesn't care. And
Mm.
as they come out, nobody is paying attention to them. Nobody is interested in them because the real hero is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's so weird. And again, like where have these people been? And they have no idea. There could be another attack going on. It's just they're kids in the schoolyard.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating to imagine if they did go ahead with a remake there, because surely they'd try and would they make
They
it so
would
that
they
there was
would they
actually
would
proper
triple
tactics going on,
they
or
would triple down on the adverts first because they'd want to make it blindingly clear.
oh yeah,
We didn't even mention when this guy turned up earlier in his costume, which let's face it, oh my lord. The bug here as well, it's so weird. So
Hmm.
because it's kind of designed to be cute.
Kinda cute and disturbing simultaneously. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a really good bit of design for Brain Bug.
yeah.
And to be fair, the bugs as a whole have some really wonderful design. Full stop. But there
This
is
is
nothing to make them you think they're a unified race. They're clearly this
see why
conglomeration of
why
different
don't
bug
the rest of
types.
the bugs come out and try and capture that thing back? By the way, remember Denise Richards was stabbed through the shoulder by one of those bugs.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
she's holding hands with Rico with the bloodied arm.
she should be passed out from blood loss at least by this point.
Yes,
Given the size of the hole in her shoulder.
but sod it. It's fine.
Yeah.
This, by the way, it's scared or whatever. It's fear.
Hmm.
That's the first time that they've actually showed any connection to the bugs.
Hmm.
Um, nice to see. No, good for Zim.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I was trying to get across. For Zim and Ratchek are probably, to my mind, the most blatantly heroic characters in the film
Yeah,
because one, they both seem to genuinely care about those they're teaching, but also they want to when they actually get a chance to put their money where their mouth is.
yeah, they're good. I would love to. I wanted to see him come back in a sequel.
Yeah.
And also I did not want him to be a sacrifice. I wanted him to stick
Mm.
around.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping at the end here when you have the montage
Yep.
with when you see Rico and his squad that Zim would have been part of that squad as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
it kind of seems like a no-brainer.
that Rico would have kind of grabbed him as an
There's
officer
Amy.
uh, as his new non-com.
Yeah. Jake is just referred to as a private.
Yeah,
So yeah, because he needs who's his second in charge? That would have been Zim,
yeah.
hopefully.
I mean,
Wow.
that was kind of my after this. That was kind of like my headcanon for what happened
Yeah.
because it just made sense. Unlikely because they'd probably used. Ironically, Zim capturing that bug, the military would probably have taken him off the battlefield and used him as a propaganda vehicle.
Yeah.
So ironically, Zim doing probably the most heroic thing of his career
Probably. Yeah.
would also
After
have
that, he
gotten him
probably
pulled from the front lines. The thing he
he
sacrificed his rank to do.
yeah, he might now well be one of those few people that gets to live a life, which is nice.
Well, no, I
Um,
was thinking he'd have been like those guys who raised a flag at Iwo Jima. He'd have just been paraded around as a propaganda, like a
oh no, sorry, but in a sense that he would live, he would live a more protected life. There we go.
true,
So you're right, he would have a job to do,
but
but
he'd probably have. But my point is, he'd probably have hated it
oh
with a
yeah,
passion.
yeah, he would have wanted to be back on the front line.
Hmm.
How so? Because true to form as well, we've missed a large chunk of the 40k stuff on this. I mean, we do a fantastic job of this. But by the way, people, we've said this before. When we say, "Hey, if you've got an idea, please let Adam know," we're telling you because we know we're so monumentally crap at actually sticking to what we aim for, each of us, on
Fair.
any of these things. And when we say, "Hey, you could easily do as well as we do," we're not joking here. Please. Please do some of these. But say a 40k film.
Hmm.
Um, would it be would it be with adverts? Do you think they would do something, or would they have the 40k equivalent, which is like sermons that pop up and
It's an
stuff like that?
interesting one because okay, take the Caiaphas Cain books
Yeah,
as an example. They do in a couple of the books have interludes that are actually not just excerpts from books, but for excerpts from news slates and TV broadcasts, and even a few propaganda pieces.
yeah,
And so that could be with of doing things. They kind of work for Kane because of how they're used to provide context for stuff that Kane just doesn't talk about,
mm,
or he only mentions in passing, and Vale wants to give a more rounded picture of things.
yeah,
In other books, so they do occasionally have little snippets. So Gaunt's Ghost is quite keen, where at the start of every book there's a blurb that describes the situation of the Sabbath Worlds Crusades at that moment,
mm,
what's going on, and what's kind of like drawn the ghost of their current
yeah,
situation. but we never really see much with advertising. I mean, Dark Tide's done pretty well in having some moments when you're going through Tertium, you do come across, or you do hear bursts of messages that are still running in
Mm.
the background. But it's not really something that's ever really been dealt with fully, and it's interesting because not Rogue Trader, which is arguably probably one of the best games to get across the vibe of the 40k of the Imperium across multiple worlds, doesn't really do that either. It's a but we know that it exists because it's described in chunks of the lore. It's mentioned in passing in quite a few books, but it's
Mm.
not really something that is a major factor. But it could be something that would be interesting for them to explore. That might give the TV show a bit of a unique hook, that you do get these moments that kind of like show you what the average Imperial citizen sees,
Yeah.
what they're told about what's going on compared to the reality. That could actually be genuinely interesting as a tool to get across just how monumentally screwed the Imperium is.
Mm. It could work.
Anyway, let me just close that. Close that a moment. But yeah,
Lovely.
it, Starship Troopers has always been a fascinating film for me because
It is because so I know it's because we didn't want to go over the wiki. We've not really, for those of you who aren't aware that like from the moment it was released, people were like, "Look, is this satire enough?"
yeah,
Because we're still cheering for these guys.
yeah. There
But
there
of
were a
course,
lot of people who
yeah,
I know it did get a lot of negative reviews because people didn't see the satire. They thought it was
yes.
being deadly serious.
Well, they thought as well it was a mix of 901, 201 in space,
Mm,
90201. There we go, in space, and it wasn't deep enough. They thought the actors were that something that really annoyed me as well is they thought the actors were stupid. This is something I could
yeah,
rage on for
that's not
hours.
that's a bit off.
Yeah, it's like, look, most actors, even up to ridiculous heights, even
Mm,
probably your favorite actors, unless they are genuine stars, they do a job. If they're given a script, they have to shut up and do that script.
yeah.
Very few times do they get to write stuff. If the script is dumb or the character is dumb, then they look dumb. But
Mm,
they are not dumb people. They've managed to make it in that environment.
yeah.
Um, and it hurts so bad. And also as well, like, I'm sorry, actresses tend to get that label more than
Mm,
actors. Um, Denise being a prime example here. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, a lot of people had to go at the talent. I think Dynamite, I think she took a hit for this as well.
Mm,
Even though obviously, like this has become a minor classic. Um, I would say in the last 5-10 years that it's almost dropped. Yes, I know you've had Helldivers,
mm,
but so many of the other classic sci-fis have been brought forward and have been updated, and even the likes of Battlestar Galactica, for instance,
mm,
which almost should have been a clear signal that yeah, give it maybe another 5-10 years to get some space, and Starship Troopers could equally do as well. Um, it's not quite had its moment in the sun. When it
yeah.
comes back, if it was to come back now, I think Rico would absolutely. You know who Rico's going to be playing in a new version if they do it. He's going to be the old guy. He's going to probably
Yeah.
be missing an arm. Neil Patrick Harris would absolutely come back, but probably as someone even more senior, and maybe actually be almost like the sort of bad guy that the film really needs.
Yeah, I mean, he's proven he can play good bad guys.
Mm.
Really good
D-
bad guys.
Dynamite, I fear. Sorry, do we know if it's Dinah or Dana? I think it's Dinah.
Uh, I thought it was Dina.
Dina.
Might be
Okay, we'll
might
say
be might
Dina.
be
So,
Dana
um,
or Dinah.
it's
It,
one of those names, ladies and gentlemen. We
yeah.
apologize. And yes, we didn't even do research on how to say that character, that act. Terrible of us. But I fear she would get cast as the mother of Rico, which would be too old, but they would include it anyway. I think that she would end
Yeah.
up with some sort of, unless of course she got the right. I mean, look, they're not going to just straight up remake the film,
Mm.
but maybe she would be Electra or something like that, and kind of and maybe just be scarred. That
I
would
mean,
be nice actually, but
I imagine if they did, however they do update Starship Troopers, whether it's a remake, whether it's done as a continuation, I have no doubt they'd find ways to get as many of the cast who are still around
yeah.
back in some form or other.
Oh, they would, and let's face it, none of them are too expensive, so it would be fine.
Yeah.
They'd
I
be
mean,
good
even
for
if
that.
cameos, it's probably not the best
Honestly,
example, but
I don't think Casper Van Dien would charge too much. I honestly, I don't think he would need to. And let's face it, it'd be great for him. A lot of these guys, by the way, did well on TV. It's not saying that they
yeah,
didn't have a career.
absolutely.
A lot of them have done pretty well. Like Dina has done very well. Amy Smart has obviously done well. I mean, Amy Smart actually might be the one that they would struggle to get back
Mm,
because that's not her thing anymore. But yeah, yeah, it's very interesting to see how it would turn out and what the reception would be, and also how much more they would need to take it
mm,
to make it seem oppressive because of the way that, unfortunately, advertising is, media is around the globe, not just America here, around the globe. But also, as somebody who's had to watch Bloomberg TV for the last 3 months, um, honestly, it's shocking just how buzzwordy and disconnected certain channels can be in the States.
mm.
Like about was it 2 months ago? No, sorry, in the last month, I think we've had the phrase. What was it? I know there was an issue over the weekend. I know with the near assassination of former President Trump. Obviously, that's a very serious issue.
Mm.
But let's look at bond markets and let's see how bond markets have reacted. And that's the sort of buzzwordy kind of focus on forget the real element. Let's talk about the element that matters to us. That's kind of what you're getting in a lot of media now.
Yeah.
So you really have to push it. And the fact that like a lot of people at the time said, look, a lot of the info stuff is designed very much like World War II German propaganda.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't done as much as it should have done. Maybe they should have gone further. And
Perhaps.
had those kind of idealized looking up camera shots and stuff. And it's not like Hollywood is afraid to do it because they've done it with a lot of Indiana Jones films. They've portrayed those
Yeah.
characters a lot and they've not shied away from them. So let's, have something equivalent and see if we can make an enemy out of these things and also hold up as well this current fad of everybody wanting to go to war and
Mm.
ignoring the cost and tragedy. Sorry, that was a serious end to all of this, wasn't it?
It was. Can I add a little,
Yeah, yeah, please,
just a
mate.
slightly lighter
Mate,
note at the end?
I've waffled for 2 hours, so you've got about 3 hours of waffling if you want.
So there is one little thing just in the aftermath of Starship Troopers. It was very interesting just remembering that after this film, about in the early 2000s, when GW released the plastic Cadian kit, which
Okay.
a lot of modern Guard players won't realize was actually a massive redesign of the range, because the original Cadians in metal were all wearing like soft flak jackets over quite average fatigues. The helmets they leaned a bit more colonial marine
Okay.
than anything else, which is kind of like why I quite liked their look. But when they redid the Cadians in plastic, they actually took on a lot more of the Starship Troopers mobile infantry. So the las guns became longer, or when they did the plastic Catachans, they redid the las guns to have the magazine and where the lasgun barrel extended out, they made that much more. It looked much more kind of that M16 vibe. When
Mm,
the Cadian range came out, the initial block of the las rifle barrel, where it exits the body, that became a solid chunk of the body cowl extending,
okay.
which gives it more of the look of the mobile infantry battle rifle. And then the
Mm,
Cadians, in turn, they have shoulder pads, they have hard body armor, the helmets are they're not quite Starship Troop mobile infantry, but they're a bit more in that direction than they were.
yeah.
So they clearly took quite a chunk of that vibe, which honestly has kind of served that. It's become the default for Imperial Guard troopers as like
Oh,
the
yeah.
generic guard troopers.
Yeah.
And even when they had their redesign a couple of years ago, it wasn't that big of a step away from that aesthetic. It's still kept hard body armor. They've reduced the size of shoulder, but they're still there. The las guns, there's a lot more variety in the designs.
Yep.
They look more like they are a force that some of them have had to pick up las rifles as they've been going, or they're from different caches and what.
Hmm.
But it's kind of fascinating how, from where the Imperial Guard were in the 90s,
Mm,
because they took a big design step, because the original Imperial Guard, Rogue Trader era, were probably even close to Colonial Marines in terms of their body armor, to be fair.
yeah.
They then pivoted to make them, to give them all these different regiments, which were all kind of effectively stereotypes,
Mm,
massive stereotypes. The Cadians were kind of like the neutral option out of all of them,
yes.
the most normal looking. And then they did the Catachan in plastic because they were kind of like, they were the most popular of the regiments, to be fair, because they were the first in metal when they did the big Perry redesign. They had the most character in a lot of
Hmm.
ways,
Yep.
so it made sense to do them in plastic. But then the Cadians have kind of like become the linchpin around everything else Guard has pivoted for over 2 decades now, effectively, since
Yeah.
that plastic redesign. And that does, I do not doubt, if you ask the design team who did that initial redesign, they'd say, "Yeah, we watched a lot of Starship Troopers." I if you look at me, you look at me and think, "Yeah, there's a lot of Starship Troopers in there. They
Yeah, I
can't
think
not
there
be."
is. Yeah. I think they took as well. Um, I'd like to think as well, because I don't know at the time, but I know that the Astra Militarum it was always the men and women who served in the Astra Militarum.
Hmm.
But I don't know, looking at 90s models, I don't know what the balance of those was.
Uh, there
And you
were.
you did you obviously you had the likes of Aliens.
Hmm.
First, the I mean, let's face it, Aliens has this massive footprint in terms of any
Oh, absolutely.
Marines in space or any
Yeah,
Marines anywhere.
yeah.
But the idea of like the men and women serving together was like it was something that was promoted in that film. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying it wasn't happening. It's just it was a positive image, even though what happened to them.
Yeah,
But Starship
absolutely.
Troopers as well was another one where, and it was
Yeah.
the thing is as well, it wasn't even made a thing of. In Aliens,
Nope.
it was made a thing of. There's has anyone has mistaken you for a man? No, have you? It that was a thing.
Well,
But
that's most blatant, but
here it's not.
people forget there were two other women in the Marine platoon.
Yeah,
Because the pilot Ferro, who was equal in rank to Hicks,
yeah.
and there was a lance corporal. Uh,
He was, I think, almost the first to
yeah,
get got. Yeah,
yeah, she was one of them.
but
That's it.
it's weird because although they're in there,
Mm,
it's I think because it was still featured.
mm.
Whereas Starship, I mean, although they talked about the shower scene, the fact is that it's the least sexy shower scene.
Yeah.
I actually feel to this day slightly embarrassed because Dina is seen topless,
Mm.
and it almost feels like an intrusion.
So
Um,
I actually hadn't really clocked mentally that she's the only one who is clearly, you actually see her
Yeah.
topless in that way. Although you do see other characters from the back, she's the only one who's kind of like face on
Well, I
to,
think
to the camera.
probably
So
because she'd signed on. I mean,
mm,
let's face it, she was doing the love scene anyway,
yeah,
which is not. It's not the worst love scene. It's actually quite affectionate.
mm,
And I know. Sorry, wiki alerts here. Wiki update. Fun fact you never knew. Denise Richards was asked to do a. Well, there was a shot scene that you can see on the DVD. By the way, getting the DVD on this, getting a Paul Verhoeven commentary, do it. Lots of fun, lots of good stuff, all with his lovely voice.
yeah,
But they did
I'll,
shoot a scene that showed her and him and Xander sort of post coitus and sort of they weren't even implying it. Something was there, but it was that she was being cold because she didn't know if she wanted it or not. But they
mm,
even asked her to do a topless scene as well, and it was like she was like, "No, I'm not doing that," and he was like, "Okay, fine." But
yeah,
I think if she had done that, I think it would have been just. I think the film would have then almost not become known for toplessness, but
mm,
it would have been like, okay, there really isn't a point. I mean,
yeah,
in many ways, although I like the shower scene, again, if every actor had been kept minimal. I mean, remember as well that there's actually kind of almost some full frontal male nudity in this,
mm,
and also Casper Van Dien walks out, and it's the woman who wants the family who slaps his ass on the way out,
yeah,
which I think is brilliant because it's like, well, okay, there's a bit of switch
yeah,
up, but yeah, it's interesting to see the kind of the mix and how
mm,
things change. But
yeah. The funny thing is, look in terms of that, seeing that sort of quality in the tabletop game, fiction wise, it's been a thing for a while that guard regiments are either male and female mixed, or they're just like to be all women as they are all men.
yeah,
It's just, but in terms of the actual miniature range, now I'm aware of there were two female Imperial Guard miniatures in Rogue Trader.
yeah,
One of which was clearly intended to be Vasquez because she had a Hong Great autocannon on a
yeah,
hip rig, which I had. It was a lovely miniature, and another one holding the rifle on her hip. Otherwise, the only female Imperial Guard miniature for the best part of 20 years was a single metal jungle fighter with a grenade launcher that I think was, it was very hard to get hold of. I don't even know how I managed to get hold of one, to be honest. I think
nice.
it wasn't a Games Day miniature, or it might have been an international Games Day one, but it was really hard to find. It's a really great miniature because again, jungle fighter, she's ripped as hell. She's carrying big ass knife and she's got the grenade launcher on a strap, holding it one handed on her hip. It's
Yeah,
a brilliant sculpt. But otherwise, it's only been in like the last decade or so we've been start. Well, there was one female Tanith Ghost when they did the Metal Gauntlet Ghost miniatures.
hmm.
Otherwise, if you wanted female troopers, you kind of had to use Escher miniatures, which from Necromunda, which never
Oh
really.
wow,
I tried doing that. I did a mixed squad of Eschers and
it
Orlocks, and
it didn't really fit, did it?
it doesn't really work. I kind of need to revisit that idea because I was going for like a recruit of gangs, and it just didn't work to what I was trying for.
Hmm.
However, in recent years, we've had. Oh, tell it. There was also a female commissar miniature, which I'm not entirely sure if that was an official release or not, but I keep
Okay.
seeing this same miniature that I'm told was an official one. But yeah, but no, we've had a miniature of Commissar Severina Rain, who
Hmm.
was a Black Library character, which is a lovely miniature. And amongst the revamped Cadian range, now there's not female body types, but there's female heads. Because when you wear that much body armor,
Doesn't really make a difference.
it don't. But it's also the sculpting's reached a point where, because you couldn't really do different different sex faces for different sexes in the early 2000s in
Yeah.
plastic. It wasn't just for sculpting, but tooling couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, one of the reasons I absolutely adore the modern Cadians is that they have so much variety,
Mm.
and and to be fair, GW are kind of chasing the third party makers on this regard because there's so many teams out there who have done great looking either purely female troopers or parts to make female troopers as conversions, and a lot of them, it's not a case of them being overtly female. It's just having heads and maybe body types and arms that look more feminine,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But
No, it makes sense.
it helps give you that variety, which is kind of it's been lacking for so long,
Mm.
and it makes it feel more real. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like one of the things that Troopers does so well and was so progressive for. Like you say, it didn't make a big thing about there being men and women serving together at every level and being bunked together and sharing all the facilities. It's just treated as this is what they do. It's the nature of this particular situation that if you've enlisted, then you're an enlisted. You're a soldier.
Yeah.
Whatever your position, you are serving, and whilst you're serving, there is no difference. But
And
again,
I like that.
we even see it in the sports event earlier in the film where Diz is the team captain.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah, very good point.
She calls for plays.
My God, I didn't even realize that. Mixed sport, which is a physical event as well.
Yeah.
That's
So
nuts. Well,
yeah.
this is the thing as well. This is where, um, and look, for a start, if anyone has made it this far, my goodness,
Well
um,
done.
yeah, well done. My dog Skip. One day I will buy you a beer, sir, just for hanging in there. But but just the whole idea though that that if you can have that kind of level of just it's weird, isn't it? We're talking about a film that is its main problem was that they didn't make a regime bad enough. And I have to agree that I don't think they did for the layman, for the
Mm,
person who notices this stuff. But the way that they had kind of that mixed nature of the genders, I think is the way that, and this is what GW are doing with the Imperial Guard, is rolling out that so it's in a low key way, it's not an issue,
mm,
and then as you expand on that, it's not an issue, and as long as you don't jump the shark and do something silly like to try and get either click praise or click hate,
mm.
then you can keep ramping it up. And by the time that people realize that you have a nice, diverse collection of characters, it's too late because everybody's used to the status quo. And that's
Absolutely.
kind of what GW needs to do. But they need to have that cast everyone, not make it a gimmick. Please
Mm,
don't. Um, and I know they're already struggling. There's a lot of people talking about random stuff as well with the Amazon stuff and diversity, and I'm sure they'll be fine with this because the miniatures are showing the way. You can have guards, any element you want, guards. You've got your sisters who could actually be the muscle if the only other people you've got are guards, which
yeah.
makes sense because then you don't have the issues of power armor, like just a marine walking around, which would be a pain in the ass. Doesn't mean you can't have them, but maybe kind of keep your powder dry, spare it for the big moment, and
Yeah.
make them seem like they really should be. But it's just have it in that subtle way. Um, have that going on that's positive, but then at the same time, just maybe even some of the guards have a problem with the overall state of things, but they can't say anything, or just find
Yeah.
a way. But
I mean
it's very difficult.
I mean that's often part of the thing in so many of the guard stories that most Imperial Guardsmen are not they're conscripted.
Yeah,
A lot of them may have some may be transfers from planetary defense forces who've been recruited across. But in almost every instance, Imperial Guardsmen, they're a tithe. it's a planet. If a planet doesn't have enough standing soldiers to create guard regiments, then they go out with the old recruiting gangs and say and round up as many people as they can who are fit enough to fight, and
Okay,
ship them off, never to return.
I've got an idea. Well, not an idea, but here's a weird thing then that I've realized. So,
Hmm.
um, if 2 or 3 guardsmen are unhappy and there's a space marine around, and they say something, "Oh, we don't think much of this Imperium," the space marine is going to turn around and shoot him in the head.
He probably wouldn't even waste the ammunition. He'd just yeet
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
A space
And
marine not even wearing power armor could probably
yeah. Now the problem
yeah.
is that you actually can't pick anyone else apart from rogue traders or I wouldn't because Inquisitor. Oh my good grief!
I mean,
You
Inquisitors can
no
have told
you
space marines. Oh well, actually,
you
yeah, a
could
rogue trader is the only person who could express any
negativity to the
yeah
situation.
because of their unique position, and they
Yeah.
are absolutely unique.
So them and Imperial Guards would give you the basis for establishing that an Imperium is bad.
Hmm.
The frustrating thing is you can't obviously do it with a Sister of Battle. And yet, isn't it and I'm gonna butcher this name now, the Hospitaliers?
Uh
So there is a segment of the Sisters of Battle that
oh yeah,
specialize
because
in being like they're basically medics.
yeah, you have the Order
Yeah.
Hospitalis.
Now,
'Cause
whenever you see them, they're not patching up Space Marines. They're patching up Imperial Guard,
hmm,
which means they deal with Imperial Guard. There is no way you could tell me that they have a branch of the Sisters of Battle that when somebody is going, screw this, I'm not having any more of this war, they stop treating them and they shoot them in the head. There must be an element of the sisters that you can deal with and realize a fraction of the situation. And that's maybe
hmm,
how you build a sympathetic cast. And also, of
maybe.
course, an injustice against them. So they believe they're doing the right
Hmm,
thing still, but like someone in power is maybe turned and therefore they're still the big bad. And
yeah.
then right at
Well,
the end you can go, well, we beat him, but Imperium's still pretty
the
crappy.
logical answer is you have someone who's massively corrupt in power.
Yes.
Gets replaced, and his replacement is just as corrupt because that's how it goes in the Imperium 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I
Most,
like that. In fact,
mo-
it's almost sorry to cut you off, but it's the RoboCop model. It
yeah,
literally could be
yeah,
the RoboCop model. Oh my god.
pretty much. I mean,
We should just pitch Amazon RoboCop.
it's not a bad way to go. I mean, hell, Robocop is effectively a battle servitor.
True.
The only difference is that
Or
most,
a 12-year-old made to be a space marine really quickly.
yeah, ab- that works as well. Yeah, Robocop is actually a pretty great analog for an an Imperial super soldier and the Imperium as well. Yeah, that's actually I hadn't
So
thought of it that way before. That's
so,
actually
so
really interesting.
not only have not only have I waffled more on this track and lost my way more than ever before. Not only have I forgotten the names of every cast member and everything involved, despite having literal pages of notes that I've ignored. We've got to the end of this and realized that we should have been talking about Robocop in the first place. Oh, this is our best one yet. This really is.
Brilliant.
Honestly, if we're getting away with recording this stuff, you should be too, people. Come on, give us a
Hmm.
shout. Is there anything else you want to say before you go?
I think we've pretty much covered everything we can do for the moment, can't we? This
Okay.
is at some point we may have to whack on one of the sequels just for giggles because
Maybe three, because I did try and watch two, and it's so bad.
yeah,
It's kind of
and it hurts because two has an actor in it that I actually quite liked from a town called Eureka.
okay.
but he has none of the charisma that he had in that show.
And the thing is, as well, it's like sometimes, I mean, it's, I have to admit, it is quite tricky watching a film
Hmm.
because your brain just picks up on stuff, and it's almost, yeah, never realized it'd be this challenging, especially with a film you like. Though then again, the Mutant Chronicles, by the end, it was literally sapping my soul, so I was finding it difficult to talk as well. So I don't know how we would do this, but I think maybe 3.
That's fair. 3
Um,
is probably. I've not seen the most recent CGI film they've done.
okay, that might be it.
It looks interesting, but I think 3 might be purely because it is live action and it is Casper Van Dien back as Johnny Rico.
Yeah, and
So
also
that,
I think Jolene is probably from the last of the era where you could, like, people in shows could be as sexualized as they were. I
true.
I, I, I don't
But
know. I don't know
interesting,
if he had a better experience than anyone else.
well, I mean, her
Trey.
character in 3 isn't particularly sexualized.
Oh, that's good. That's a
Yeah.
relief.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. To be honest, this is the thing as well. I always feel that when actors and actresses, and look, actors as well, big time with the way that they are sexualized. I'm sorry, actors in a lot of Hollywood films now. My goodness, but the fact that they are clearly leaving their talent that got them to that role, they're leaving that talent on the table whilst they go and look cute in a costume, male or female. That makes me sad. But yeah, no, I think I'd like to see that. That would be good.
Yeah, maybe one
Cool.
for down the pipe. I actually, I might not even do it for this. I might just bump it up for queue for watch along at some point because
Yeah.
it is in my list.
Cool. You're next on the watch along, by the way. So it's your choice.
Oh,
Any ideas?
you know what? I think we have to do Event Horizon.
We're not going to be able to keep Gruffy off the recording. I mean, I don't mind
That's fine. I'm happy to
because
get him on.
I'm basically, because Gruffy's listening to this.
Hmm.
He is our guaranteed listener, which is great.
Absolutely.
If he could listen to this 300 times, it would do great for our numbers. But what we need to do is just go start the film and go, so what do you think about this, Gruffy? And then we can just go make a cup of tea, have a meal. It'd be great. It'd be the easiest one we've done yet.
Absolutely.
So anyway, listen, thank you to everyone who listens to this. My God, please let us know if you make it all the way through. And I'm not talking about my dog Skip, who just there are medals being printed for you. But anyone on YouTube who honestly who makes this through when this goes up on there as well, thank you so much. And look, please do recommend a film, recommend something. We will go through it.
Absolutely.
But until then, folks, you guys take care and we'll speak to you soon.
Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.
This has been a Fluffenhammer production. Come join us at thefluffenhammer.com. Find us at patreon.com/the Fluffenhammer. You are now a fluffer.